Calling this meeting to order, May 3rd, El Segundo City Council meeting. Madam Clerk, would you please take roll call?
Councilmember Drew.
Here.
Councilmember Nichols.
Here.
Councilmember Perstuck. Here. Mayor Pro Tem Pimentel.
Here.
And Mayor Boyles.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. All right, we're going to have the invocation led by Rabbi David Liesman of the Jewish Community Center, and we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance led by Councilmember Perstuck. So if you could all please rise. Thank you.
Before the flag. Okay. Isaiah states, "Here is the God, the one who fashioned the earth and its maker. He established it. He did not create it for emptiness. He fashioned it to be inhabited and settled." A vital aspect of God's plan in creation, based on this verse in Isaiah, is for people to live and work together. For a civilized society that operates in harmony, where people join together to enact a legal system for the purpose of building an environment where people are free to grow, free to produce, free to pursue better lives for themselves and for others. This is the purpose of government, to build a community where people can thrive as only human beings are capable, so that they are free to serve God to their best ability. Honorable Mayor and City Council members, it is easy to lose sight of this lofty goal when you are bogged down in deliberations in that which demand your attention. Therefore, we turn to God to bestow blessings on our city leaders, to provide them the wisdom to balance the rights of individuals, the community, and businesses, to enact laws and institute policies that will bring God's blessing of peace, goodness, and blessing upon them and upon all the citizens of this great city. May it be favorable in God's eyes to bless our mayor and city council members and all the citizens of El Segundo at all times and at every moment with his peace and blessings. May God bless the United States of America, the state of California, and the city of El Segundo, and let us say, Amen.
Thank you, Rabbi. Thank you, Councilmember Perstuck. All right, we've got several special presentations. We're delighted to recognize a young lady. Is she here? Is Miss Durand here? Katy Durand? Thought I saw her mom, Stacy, in the background. Is Katy Durand here? Okay, great. Katy, come on up. We've got recognition for Katy. She's an El Segundo High School student. She's an incredible writer, by the way. And she just recently took first place in the women's age 16 to 19 category for the LA Marathon. And Katy, was that your first LA Marathon?
Yes,
awesome.
It was.
And who is your favorite soccer coach of all time?
Drew Boyle.
Thank you. Wow, good answer. I didn't even prep her for that one. But anyway, Katy, we've got an incredible certificate of commendation for you. She finished the LA Marathon in 3 hours, 38 minutes, and 19 seconds. And as I mentioned, she took overall first place in her age group, 16 to 19, and placed top 10% of women overall her first marathon. Overachiever like the rest of her family members. Well done. Very good job. So let's do a photo with Katy. We've got a commendation for you as well. You want to say any words?
Thank you for the recognition. Happy to be here. Thanks, Drew.
Excellent.
All right, a couple of pictures here. And one more. Are your parents here?
I'm right here.
Do you wish to
get in
be
the photo?
Or you can take a photo first.
Yeah, no, I don't
and then
need
get
it.
in the photo.
I don't need to be in the photo. There we go.
Oh, why don't you hop on in there? Oh, that's it? Okay.
Wait, is he going to be in the paper?
What was I will never run a marathon. I will never run a marathon. It's remarkable. I actually finished the 5K this past weekend.
3 hours, 15 minutes.
in 3 hours. Yeah, I was crawling at the end. Okay, next up, we have recognition of the AYSO Boys U12 State Champions. I'll turn it over to Mayor Pro Tem Pimentel.
We've had quite a run of youth sports success in the last year. Coach Gomez, are you out there? Coach, turn him on in. Everyone braving the garlic smell of Gilroy and Morgan Hill. Coach Gomez led this team, the AYSO U12 boys, to the Western State Championship. Nicely done. Coach, would you like to introduce your team?
Yes, it was a lot of credit to these young men. For a season that started in September and ran all the way into March, that was the longest AYSO season I've ever seen. These young men really did a great job representing El Segundo. We had an undefeated season. I believe we were 24 and with 2 ties, 24 wins, 2 ties, no losses. Every time we got to a knockout game or the championship game, the area championship, the section championship, as well as the Western State Championship, these boys found themselves behind in the game and then pulled it together and pulled out the win every single time. Starting up front over here, Xavier Gomez, Van Parker, Lucian DeSaint, how do you say it? Agnes? DeSaint, see, sorry. My French is not very good. William Siglick, Louis Tobin, Leo Toivin, Cooper Bartha, Kaz Ingram, Johnny Amaral, Louis Lappy, Kuno Ingram, Marcus Dell, and the one and only Ian Smigelski. These boys really did a great job representing El Segundo, like I said. So hats off to them, and it was a pleasure to coach them. It was really my honor and a joy to be out there and watching these boys, not just on the field, but just grow as young men.
Yeah, maybe you want to stay there, council. Should be fine. Should be fine. Hold on one second. A little more depth of field for you guys now. Okay. Ready, everyone? Okay, a couple of photos here. Oh, you were moving. Hold on a second. There we go. If you guys could hold up your papers, maybe open them up. Oh. It's okay. You've all changed names now. No problem. No worries. Okay. All right. Here we go. And a couple more photos. All right. And one more. And now wait there. You don't have to open them now, but parents, would you like to take some photos? Oh, yes, thank you. Great.
Yay, guys. Do I have permission to post this on Facebook, boys? Yes.
Yeah, at campus. While they're walking out, I just wanted to commend Mr. Gomez. Great guy, great coach. Knew I was coaching a team, the age group below, in the same situation, and on numerous occasions reached out to see if I needed any advice, any help, and kind of give me a heads up on what works, what doesn't work in the playoffs against various cities. So just want to say thank you. You are a great addition to the community. He's also a baseball coach, so I mean, volunteers make El Segundo go round, and the volunteers in town don't get enough recognition. So congratulations, thank you, and the plaque for the state championship at campus. I'm pretty sure someone from staff is going to hear us talking about this now, and is going to look into that and get together with AYSO and figure out what we can do.
Thank you very much. And it's
Awesome.
a pleasure. I mean, it's a community, and I love being part of the community, giving back. Growing up, like, sports was always, a big piece of my life, and just, seeing the boys out there and the excitement and the enthusiasm that they get, that's what really drives me, and that's why I love being out there. I mean, I'm a kid at heart, so.
All right, next up we have recognition. Long time tenure with the city. So who will be presenting on this? Yeah, Mr. Allen, thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council. I have the privilege tonight, this afternoon, to acknowledge and honor and present, our most tenured at the time. After this week, I'm not sure who's next in line, but our longest tenured staff member at 32 years, who is our senior building inspector, Jamie Taylor, who's sitting behind me with his family, and we are accompanied by some staff members and colleagues. But we're grateful for Jamie's service to the city. It's not very often you get to celebrate somebody who works 30 years in the same jurisdiction, and I think it says a lot to Jamie and as well as this community that he's been here for so long, and his dedication to the community, the development community, the residents. He's passed a great deal of knowledge on to his colleagues, his coworkers, and staff. And so with that, I'd like to present this plaque celebrating Jamie's 32 years of excellence in the city of El Segundo. And so Jamie, if you join me up here, and feel free to... Thank you. I'm not sure if you have any words to share, words of wisdom, but...
I'm sorry, but no, I was not prepared for this. This is great. I just want to say thank you to El Segundo. It's been a fabulous community, fabulous city for me and my family, and enjoyed every minute being here. Okay, thank you very much.
Oh, you got a nice paper.
Yeah, thank you.
Take some photos with council.
I just my daughter.
Michael, you got him on. Did you want to be in the photo? We got you. No? Just take a picture? Okay. You go for it first.
Thank you so much.
Wait for me.
All right, here we go, guys. Couple photos. And one more. And one more. Very good. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, we've got another great recognition. I'm going to introduce Chief Lee to the microphone, please.
Thank you, Mayor, members City Council. It's my pleasure to introduce Captain Tony Del Castillo. He is the 2021 Firefighter of the Year. You can see how beloved he is by all the firefighters that showed up today. I'm going to read his nomination, but first I want to give you a little background on Captain Del Castillo. He's born and raised in the South Bay. He likes surfing, golfing, fly fishing, traveling, and camping. He also loves spending time with his wife, Liza, and his daughter, Bella, who are here today. He was hired in May of 1999. He graduated paramedic school in 2003 and assigned to firefighter paramedic. He promoted to fire captain in 2016. and he has his bachelor's degree in fire administration from Columbia Southern University. I'd like to read to you from one of his peers that nominated him, what they wrote down for the nomination. I'd like to nominate Captain Tony Del Castillo for the 2021 Rotary Firefighter of the Year. Captain Del Castillo is professional in every definition of the word. His dedication to the El Segundo Fire Department is a standard that we should all strive to emulate. As the paramedic coordinator, Captain Del Castillo puts in long hours ensuring that all paramedics and EMTs receive the required continuing education and all updates to Los Angeles County protocols. Additionally, Captain Del Castillo was a key component of coordinating the COVID-19 pandemic response, often utilizing his own time to attend meetings and secure personal protective equipment for the firefighters. As a training officer, also, Captain Del Castillo leads his platoon in training that mimics real-world scenarios. He coordinated multi-agency training and facilitated fire ground search and rescue training. He's also the REMS coordinator. He manages 15-person technical rescue discipline that requires specialized training. He also coordinates training with adjoining organizations and ensures that all personnel are equipped with the latest equipment and tactics. Del Castillo leads his crew and the organization by following and living the El Segundo Fire Department's core values, which are integrity, compassion, dedication, teamwork, and professionalism. Captain Del Castillo is a standout employee and deserves to be recognized as the Firefighter of the Year. I just want to say that when I think of a firefighter that just embodies what it means to be an El Segundo firefighter, it is Captain Del Castillo. And, you know, some of us are good at one discipline, structure firefighting, wildland firefighting, EMS, one or the other. Tony is all around fantastic at everything that he does, and I'm proud to announce him as Firefighter of the Year.
Chad, will you say you would like to say some words, and then we'll come up and join you for a picture?
Sure, yeah. First of all, I'd just like to recognize Chief Lee and my brothers and sisters from the fire department that, you know, I come to work every day just to bring a positive attitude and you know, try to bring something beneficial to the organization to make it a better place. And to be recognized by my peers and my coworkers and to be voted for this, you know, recognition, it means a lot. And it makes me feel good inside. And I'm just really appreciative of my career and my job. And yeah, just really fortunate and very thankful. Thank you.
Of course, Chief, come on. What a question. No, I want that fire chief. Okay, guys, here we go, a couple of photos. Here's one, here's two. That's why I take a whole bunch, so we get a good smile. Very good, thank you so much. Oh, got another two. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, next up we have another recognition, or I'm sorry, a proclamation that will be read by Councilmember Perstock.
Okay, so we have a presentation for the Older American of the Year and Elderfest Proclamation. Whereas on May 2022 is National Older American Month, a time set aside annually to commemorate and celebrate the significant contribution older Americans have made to the community of El Segundo. And whereas El Segundo is committed to valuing all individuals and recognizing their ongoing life achievements. And whereas Older Americans poses and shares a wealth of experience, background, and history, making them one of the city's most trusted and endearing resources. And whereas older Americans are available, capable, and enthusiastic to provide volunteer service that contribute to a coordinated community-based systems of social, emotional, physical well-being of not only other seniors, but for the community at large. thus as an important part of the ties that bind both family and community. And whereas recognizing the success of community elders encourages their ongoing participation and further accomplishments, and whereas this year all El Segundo older Americans are being celebrated as we embrace the 2022 El Segundo Older Americans of the Year, a recognition that identifies, inspires, and promotes community involvement and a spirit of giving back to others through volunteerism and community engagement. Now, therefore, on this third day of May 2022, the mayor and members of the City Council of the City of El Segundo, California, do hereby proclaim the month of May 2022 as Older Americans Month of 2022, and hereby recognize the Elderfest celebration Saturday, May 21st, 2022, from 11 to 2 p.m. at the Joslin Center to recognize all senior citizens who give generously of their time and talent to improve the quality of life of El Segundo. And I believe Ryan Delgado is coming up to accept this. If you want to say some things.
Yeah, absolutely. We are very excited to be back with Elderfest. As you know, during the pandemic, the Joslin Center operated as the house of the IMT, so our seniors were unable to attend for a couple years, and we missed this celebration for 2 years. So we're really excited to get everyone back in the building. The card tables have been full again. Quite a busy house at Joslin, and this year, since we haven't been able to really celebrate anyone, we're going to celebrate all of our seniors. So we're going to honor all of them that day. We hope everyone can come down. It'll be Saturday, May 21st at the Joslin Center from 11 to 1. Council invite, I'll send those out as well. Hope to see you there, and we have volunteers, so hope to see members of the public helping out with our seniors that day. So thank you.
Quick note on this is that 3 years ago, the council directed staff to look into, and I'm drawing a blank on the initiative. It was age-friendly initiative. Is it age-friendly? Age in place is a big component of that. So I think we're in the third year of implementing those recommendations, but it fits nicely with that. Thank you for reading that, Councilmember Perstuck. All right, we're on to public communications.
All right, first up, Liz Garnholz.
Madam Clerk, while she's coming up, how many cards do we have? Okay, thank you. You have 5 minutes tonight, Ms. Garnholz.
Oh, somebody left this.
Uh-oh.
That remains.
Is that a vape pen?
Okay. My name is Liz Garnholz. I'm an older American citizen of El Segundo, and I'm here to talk about, I don't want recreational drugs sold here in El Segundo. If I get my things wrong, correct me, okay? But it seems a bunch of out-of-towners, NIMBYs, got a legal petition to sell recreational drugs in El Segundo. As a knee-jerk reaction, the city is going to have a counter I don't want drug initiative about selling drugs in El Segundo, and their initiative will have some sort of rules and regulations where the NIMBY one doesn't. Both the NIMBY one and the knee-jerk reaction of the city initiative have one thing in common: collateral damage. Collateral damage is a black market. I have read articles. That's what results a very well-developed black market. Last week I had an article in the Herald that was only 50 pages long. It was entitled "No Marijuana in El Segundo." The LA Times article, December 26, 2021, regarding Proposition 64 states that, quote, "To appease local government and law enforcement groups, the initiative gave cities and counties the power to completely ban marijuana-related businesses in their jurisdictions." And that's exactly what 2/3 of those localities did. Unfortunately, El Segundo is not one of those localities. So my question, why the knee-jerk reaction? Why didn't El Segundo take the opportunity that was given to cities and counties the power to completely ban marijuana-related businesses in their jurisdictions? My other question is, seeing as this is supposed to go on the ballot, I think November 8th, if I'm wrong, tell me, do we have time to ban this, as Prop 64 says we can do? It was very interesting having a rabbi here, because on Saturday afternoon in Tarzana at a legal dope dispensary store, somebody was shot and killed. It was interesting because this shop was above a synagogue, so no place is holy when it comes to being shot when you're dealing with drugs. My mother always said, say something nice. I really had to think hard on this. The only thing I can think of is if our children or one of our esteemed citizens ODs on dope, no problemo. We have a hospital real close by over there on El Segundo Boulevard. So don't worry if you OD, help is very close by. In conclusion, I just have my two questions. They're addressed to the mayor or the city attorney. I don't know under whose purview this subject is covered. Why the knee-jerk reaction? Why didn't you take this opportunity that Prop 64 gave you and say no to drugs? Seeing you've always been telling your kids, just say no. You had an opportunity and you didn't. Why? And the other question is it too late to still say why? And remember this, El Segundo, the collateral damage from selling legal drugs is an illegal black market. And by the way, thank you for the sidewalk on Pine.
Thank you, Mrs. Garnholz. Real quick before you go, we did ban marijuana. The problem is, and the city attorney can touch on the due process that was involved to gather the petitions to qualify for a ballot that is outside of our control based on state law. But we did ban marijuana in town. And Mr. Hensley?
Yeah, just quickly.
I'm sorry, I can't hear.
Oh, right after Prop 64 was passed, like, I think it was the next meeting, it was within a month, there was the council adopted an urgency ordinance banning the marijuana, cannabis uses in the city, and then we adopted a regular ordinance doing the same thing. So the council did take advantage of its option to ban the sale and manufacturing, et cetera, of marijuana in California, in El Segundo. The problem is, or the issue is, that someone came in with a ballot measure, the initiative petition, gather signatures from the residents to put something on the ballot in November to make it legal and essentially override what the council did.
Okay, I will come to your office and you can explain this.
I'll be happy to do that.
Thank you, Ms. Garnholz. Well, all right. We'll clarify. City attorney can follow up with you. Thank you. Okay, next up.
Jonathan Svetko.
Good evening. My name is Jonathan Svetko. I wanted to recognize that you have a lot of pressure and responsibility to do the right thing in a short amount of time when it comes to this cannabis initiative. I'd like to offer a simple solution that provides a highly competitive measure that residents would likely favor. Rather than making it complicated for residents to decide between 3 different measures on the ballot, the first being the outside special interest initiative, the second being the tax measure, and the third being an ordinance from the City Council that regulates. Instead, consider doing something similar to what both the City of Los Angeles and most recently the Hawthorne did. They implemented a simple ballot measure strategy that does 2 things. It establishes a flexible tax on cannabis activities that can be adjusted by a simple vote of the City Council in the future. And 2, preserve the right and the authority of the City Council to regulate activities through a future ordinance. This strategy is easy to communicate to residents, giving them 2 easy options. Option number 1, they can either vote for the City Council measure that brings tax revenues and maintains local control, or option number 2, they can vote for an outside special interest initiative that has no tax and takes local control away from the city. Adopting the strategy that Hawthorne and the City of LA have done will also allow City Council the benefits of tax revenues. It preserves that local authority for local control to implement and modify an ordinance in the future with a simple vote of the City Council. Simple as that. We don't need to do more complicated in there. Wherever we can be of help, please let me know. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speckle.
Jack Baker.
Send the Sergeant at Arms for Mr. Baker.
He's not here. Next up, I think I saw somebody out here that might express earlier today they might want to speak, but maybe not. I saw Riley Motts back there. Is he wanting to speak or no? Okay. I guess not. All right, we have no one on, oh, we're not doing that anymore. Video. All right, forgot about that. Okay. All right, that's it for public communications? All right.
And I might just, since we're responding to and we're trying to get a lot of information out because there's been some confusion about the facts and cannabis and whatnot, is in response to the gentleman's that just stood up, the council could adapt a tax measure that has some sort of ceiling in it, and so long as you always stay below that ceiling, you could adjust it, but you can't just increase a tax above what the voters have approved. So it can be flexible, but they would have to approve some ceiling. There's nothing in Prop 218 that would allow the council just to give itself taxing authority in a flexible manner. I've not seen any case law that would permit that. Second, on the idea of, and we'll get to this, I know, when the item comes up, but I think what he effectively was offering on the second option was ban it unless you permit it. That is an option to simply get the voters to ban it unless the council in the future permits it, which is kind of essentially like voting no on the ballot measure, right? So, but it, you know, it's an option to, I guess, to state it that way. So that's the end of my hand. There's any other questions?
Okay, any follow-up questions for Mr. Hensley?
I think that would follow the recent trend of super confusingly worded ordinances on ballots or initiatives on ballots. Vote yes if you mean no would be remarkable, but not unusual.
Okay, thank you. City Manager, any follow-up on the public communications?
I don't have a follow-up on the public communication, but if you'd like a quick update, I know it's been a pretty hot topic on the pool heaters at the Aquatic Center. Excuse me. Yeah, I've been working very closely with the Superintendent Weisburn, and we're at a point now where they are very close to kind of taking on the role of bringing in new heaters and addressing the problem that's out there. So I just wanted to let the council know that things are starting to pick up rapidly. The issue right now is obviously how they get paid for. There's a replacement fund that's already been set up in our joint use agreement that has about $160,000. I will be coming to the council in the very short future here to request appropriation for some dollars that will ultimately pay for to complement the 160 to pay for the pool heaters. So I expect to do that in the next couple weeks, and so that we can initiate this process now to replace those. So I'm hoping to be able to finalize that with Weisburn by, the early to midsummer.
So from a fixed standpoint, when it's actually fixed, what's the timeline looking? Best and worst case scenario?
It's really hard to tell in terms of the timing, because I don't believe these heaters are kind of like right off the shelf, if you will. And I don't know, Elias, what do you think? Maybe 2 to 3 months?
Good evening. So the report that we have done, it has, at the preliminary level, has identified the size of the heaters, but they have to be designed. And the design has to be done by an entity that is going to be hired by the school, because this is within the school right away, and the school district has to coordinate the design with the state. That's the law. They have to do that. So they have to hire a consulting firm. The design will not, I don't anticipate the design to take a long time, and we'll be more than happy to help them with the process. If all goes well, I hope by summer they'll start getting the new heaters. But anyway, we're gonna help them in any form or fashion that we can. One of the issues is the funding. It's going to be about over just a little over $500,000. There is only $160,000 that we have left, so they have to get some money from us. So we have to have an agreement. So the funding is going to be something that the city manager will bring up to the city council later on.
Probably I speak for the council when I say, let's not let the funding get in the way.
Right.
We just realized after today's budget session that although the picture's a little bit bleak, we do have some funds available that we are going to maybe set aside for capital improvement. And I can't imagine that any of us up here would want to stall a project because we don't have the money.
Right.
And the reason I was somewhat hesitant on the timing is that as our Public Works Director shared, a lot of this is within the control of the school district, the Wiseburn School District. Right. So we are, what I'm doing is just trying to keep them motivated and keep them moving on getting this done. And I can assure the council that I will do everything I can to just keep them moving this as quickly as possible.
Quick question. So, and I think RC might need to answer this, but maybe Elias can. As the weather gets better and the filtration system is working, it's just the heater that's not working. So in other words, it's tough to regulate the temperature. But if it gets up to a certain point where the user groups decide, okay, look, it's at a point where I can use it. Are we allowing that? Are we going to make, an allowance for that? Water polo players are used to cold pools. I don't know about swimmers.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, City Council. We did speak about this. John and I did have this conversation. I did bring up to him, I think we would need to clear that with the school district first, because they would assume the liability of that if something were to go wrong. Say the temperature affected a swimmer, then we would have to go through the process of who's responsible. So I think we would have to come to the table as an agreement to say we can do this on both sides of the fence, not just on the city side.
And that could just be a matter of having the user groups indemnify.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah, we can do that. Well, actually, one other item, Mayor, that I would like on the consent calendar, I'd like to pull item 11 and bring that back at a future meeting.
Okay, noted.
Thank you, that's it. Thank you.
Moving on to procedural motions, reading all ordinances and resolutions on the agenda by title only. Do we have a motion to do so?
Giroux, so moved.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Nichols, second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No. Okay. So we have item 11 pulled. Are there any other pulls?
Number 8.
12, please. Okay. And 12, I'll have to recuse myself anyway, but I don't need to leave the dais, do I, Mr. Hensley, on this one?
Not as long as it'll just be noted that you're, and you could vote on it all at once, it'll just be noted that you're you're abstaining from voting on that.
Thank you. Carol, you pulled 8, correct?
Yes.
Any others? Okay. I'm going to be abstaining on item, 12 is pulled anyway, excuse me. So do we have a motion to approve items 6, 7, 9, 10, 13, 14, 15, and 16?
Giroux, so moved.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Nichols, second.
Great. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No. 5-0. Okay, Carol, item 8.
Yeah, extension of license agreement with El Segundo Co-op Nursery. the reason why I pulled this is, we are looking at capital improvement, and one of the things we're looking at is the clubhouse. And this is a 3-year extension, and I want to make sure that there's language in the contract that if we actually decide to move forward with remodeling or construction, we don't have to find a new home for them, that this is, because we're offering to them a very deep discount, and I want to make sure that the language does not make us not move forward with any type of remodeling or construction.
We can make sure that if that's the will of the majority, that we'll make sure that we have that the city has that flexibility.
Great. Would you like to move approval?
Yeah, so I'll move approval.
With that direction.
With that direction,
With that
yes.
direction, yes.
I just want to make sure that if we, as a council, decide that this is something we really want to move forward with, we can move forward with it without any type of complications.
Okay, great. We had a second, and that was with the specific direction in it, right? Councilmember Giroux?
Correct.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Okay. All right, and then 11's being deferred to a later date. Item 12, Mayor Pro Tem Pimentel.
12, this is the amendment to the professional services agreement with RM Design Group for consulting services to update the downtown specific plan. Specifically, this is about an addendum to study parking. I pulled this item because we'll be discussing outdoor dining, which I think in our original conception more than a year ago was going to be tied to a downtown specific plan update. We engaged RRM, I believe, in April of 2021. And it's a $500,000 contract, or $400,000 contract. Is it correct?
Right. Do you want to, since the mayor and Councilmember Nickel have a conflict on this, do you want to take this up when we take up the outdoor dining, so that if you have a conversation about it, so they don't, otherwise they probably need to get up and leave now if there's going to be a discussion about it. No, but technically, if there's going to be a discussion on it, they should.
I just keep hearing the sticks in my head.
So,
I'm comfortable with that. If we want to take it as a part of it, do we just make it
we'll just
12 part of?
Right, we'll just take this up when we get to that item, so that way they don't have to leave right now and go through.
Do I have to move deferral?
No,
Or,
we'll just take it up at that point.
Very well.
It'll be a separate item, but we'll take it up at that time.
Okay. You'll be running that, so remember
so
that.
deferred.
Okay, great. We're on to item 17. South Bay City's Council of Governments Local Travel Network Wayfind and Signage Project Report. I'm assuming Michael Allen's going to take the point on this, and then it's good to see Aaron Baum and David Legier from the South Bay City Council of Governments. They both did a tremendous job at the most recent General Assembly. Great job, both of you. Thank you for being here. Mr. Allen.
I'm just going to hand it right over to them, but the COG is looking to partner with the city in the preparation of a application for Measure M funds to support the implementation of a local travel network in El Segundo. What is a local travel network? I'll leave it to my colleagues to explain that through their brief presentation, and then we'll be here for questions.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is David Legier. For those who don't know me, I'm here on behalf of the South Bay City's Council of Governments. And I'm going to give you a little overview about our local travel network project. So what is the local travel network project? It's a project that'll connect neighborhoods to destinations via existing slow-speed neighborhood streets to support personally owned micromobility devices. It's important to note that we're not talking about rental scooters or any of the bird scooters, anything like that. This is about personally owned vehicles. Why the network? A lot of research was done by the COG over the last decade, and it's shown that most of our trips are local. There we go. 70% of trips are about 3 miles or less, 90% are 10 miles or less. This project's more about right-sizing your ride. You don't necessarily need a gas car to go down the street to the store, or go run to the restaurant, drop your kids off at school. It's about getting folks to think about getting rid of their second or third vehicle making a more sustainable mobility choice about getting around their community. It's about safety, increasing safety for these users as they travel around the city. And it's also about supporting the micromobility market. E-bike sales, as you probably have gathered over the last couple of years, have exploded. E-bikes are actually the fastest selling electronic e-vehicle in the country. The state's rolling out an e-bike rebate program. The COG has introduced legislation to provide rebates for other micromobility devices. And we've actually even heard that the city is considering adopting some NEVs for city use. So it's happening all around you. I've got a little video here. I don't know if it'll play, but this, oops. If not, we can skip it, but just gives you kind of a little taste of the wide range of micromobility devices that are out there. So we'll do that later. So what is the local travel network exactly? On the left-hand side, you'll see the network of all existing streets in the South Bay, approximately 2,000 miles or so. On the right-hand side, you'll see what is the proposed local travel network. The green and blue sections are what we're focusing on in Phase 1. Through a refinement process, with a Caltrans grant, we came up with the map on the right. How it works, it's predominantly wayfinding and signage and street markings. We're not talking about lane diets or anything like that. It's using existing neighborhood streets, mostly 25 miles an hour. Once again, connecting a neighborhood to a destination with crossings at busy intersections through either signalized intersections or four-way stops. Let's get into a little bit about what it means for El Segundo. We would love to have El Segundo as part of our Phase 1 Beach Cities corridor, which, as you can see, involves El Segundo, Manhattan Beach, Hermosa Beach, and Redondo Beach. We're currently working with staff and councils and commissions from each of those cities to move the project forward. And it's important to note that the network's designed to work both within your city and outside of your city, connecting to other cities. So, a little bit more in detail about El Segundo. As you'll see from the map, El Segundo is sort of an island right now. There are no legal ways to get in or out of the city using micromobility. It's infrastructure restrictions and speed limits. But COG staff is still recommending an intra-city network for El Segundo. And we think it'll allow your residents to get to key destinations in the city using micromobility. The bigger lift, though, comes with connecting to your neighbors, either to the east or to the south. Through a refinement process, we identified a couple possibilities for those connections that are a little bit bigger of a lift. We think that on the east side, Douglas might serve an okay connector to your employment corridors, centers, allowing folks that work in El Segundo an LTN-friendly micromobility route to get to and from work. On the west side, the initial research was showing that Vista Del Mar might be a viable connection to the beach cities in the south. And it's important to note that it'll not only allow your residents to get into the other cities, but allow those city residents to get up into your city to visit restaurants, breweries, bars, and other destinations. So our timeline for implementation. Right now, we're working with city staff to refine routes through all of the cities. And it's, in our opinion, a Measure M eligible project, eligible for sub-regional funding through the COG, meaning no city dollars will have to be spent to implement. And it's mostly signage and wayfinding, so it's something that's pretty easily rolled out. Our goal is to have your city staff submit a Measure M application as part of our upcoming cycle, which will be due sometime at the end of this year, early 2023. And assuming Metro Board approval sometime in the summer of 2023, at that point the city would be able to begin implementing the network intra-city. And the important thing to note is that we are here to be an extension of your city staff. We have a consultant on board, and we're here to help you guys. We know everybody's already busy, so we're here to kind of provide that extra lift for everybody. And tonight, I know the slide says become champions, but I think the city's already an LTN champion and micromobility champion. Driving in, we saw quite a few NEVs parked out on Main Street. I know the city's considering some vehicles for a department. And so you guys have already been talking about it, thinking about it. We want you to keep doing that, and also think about talking to your colleagues in other cities to get them to kind of pick up the same approach. these things are here already. It's about kind of supporting that development. We specifically are hoping that you will direct your staff to work with us to complete the route refinement and finalize the streets in the city that we'll be using, to participate in our wayfinding and signage project, which will help develop branded signage for the network throughout the South Bay, with options for personalization in each city. To prepare and return a funding agreement, or a Measure M application for funding to the council for approval, and to begin exploring options for that Phase 2 connection to other cities. And with that, that's it. We're happy to answer any questions you might have, and yeah, thank you.
How are you? Thank you. Great presentation. I think it's strange to think it was like 10 years ago, Eric Bush was hosting a meeting for the South Bay Bicycle Network at the Joslin Center. And, you know, he and his wife opened Electric Bikes LA here in town far before their time, and then got out of the business just in time, or the wrong time. But I was actually talking a little bit about this at the General Assembly with Mayor Pro Tem Pimentel, and I said, right now I can ride my bicycle down Grand Avenue, and I can ride on Vista Del Mar legally, correct? And so what I don't understand is, so you can ride an electric bike down Vista Del Mar legally as well, can you not?
Yes.
I believe Manhattan Beach has made it so you cannot ride them on the bike path.
Correct.
Or you can't be under power or something on the bike path, something along those lines. But, you know, we have sharrows on many of our roads where, you know, so we share the road. And I had said, why can't there be a sharrow on the inside lane on Vista Del Mar? And, well, I forget exactly what you said. Obviously, it was something funny. But it was about, it was not feeling safe driving your electric golf cart down Vista Del Mar based upon the speed limit. Right. And so I guess in all of that, it was like, has that not been discussed? Is sharrows not a concept that's out there where, you know, it helps connect the entire South Bay?
So that 99% probably of our network is sharrows and signage. There's those few little areas like Vista Del Mar that just aren't feasible for that. And that's going to take some creative thinking with the council and staff. We think there's options out there to kind of figure that out. Might involve getting accounting, talking about the beach area, coastal commission, but that's a very important connection for us. And we think it makes total sense to take Vista Del Mar and connect into Manhattan Beach. So yes, it's been talked about, but there's not a solution yet. Just because of the safety things that you've identified.
And yet, I can still ride my bicycle without power at a slower rate of speed.
What the project is trying to do is make sure it's safe. We don't want to have anybody go on Vista Del Mar just because it's a connection. We want to make sure it's a safe connection.
I know, but I mean, to that point, like, am I safe on my bicycle down Vista Del Mar? I mean, that's where I find it, we're in like this gray area of, you know, if a police officer sees me riding my bicycle with my children down Vista Del Mar, they may frown upon that.
Right.
And tell me there's a better route,
right.
You know? But if I'm riding my, well, I guess if I'm riding my electric bike, it's fine. But if I'm driving my golf cart to the beach, I can get pulled over.
Yes.
Correct. Just to put a little bit of clarification on the network concept and design, we're looking at the continuum, if you will, or the universe of micromobility options. So think NEVs, neighborhood electric vehicles, golf carts at one end, 25 miles an hour at top speed, all the way down to pedal bikes, all right? Streets are illegal for NEVs or golf carts above 35 miles an hour. Vista Del Mar, Douglas are two examples of those kinds of streets. Change the speed, then you can do things with it in terms of driving a golf cart legally. Bikes, ironically or interestingly, can pretty much go anywhere. And they do. Bike routes, class 1 routes for bikes, are on some of the most dangerous streets you can imagine. It's up to you as a rider. The idea behind this network is to sort of find a safe way for that universe of micromobility options to travel in and around El Segundo and across the South Bay. So that's sort of the way to maybe contextualize this a little bit, if that helps. Okay.
Isn't there a new state law that allows cities to change state or speed limits as well?
Indeed, absolutely. I'm at a loss exactly what the law, the bill is, but that's correct. Cities now don't have to wait 5 years in terms of reviewing speed limits and posted speeds. You can do that sooner. And again, that's an option. The heavy lift, it might be as simple as changing the speeds. And again, shadow markings are the way of which we're going to sort of designate the travel network with wayfinding signage. It's interesting, when we did the design of the network, I literally rode 100 miles or more of it, and much of our network was selected, actually goes over existing sharrows. What would that look like in the future? Might be wayfinding signage to go on top of it. It's another way of reinforcing the idea that you're sharing the road with cars, or cars are sharing the road with slower vehicles, and this is a new way of thinking, a safe way of thinking about getting around the South Bay.
I know at least 3 of us up here on the dais have NEVs that we use a lot, and I can't tell you how many times driving to Campus El Segundo I felt, what is a safe way to get over here? It's certainly not El Segundo Boulevard with the oil tankers coming out of Chevron and stuff. So, all right, thank you very much. So we're gonna,
A couple just quick questions. One, I think that sometimes the funding things get lost on the people at home. So Measure M is a part of your sales tax. So by allocating Measure M dollars, it's a chance for us to get some of our contribution to the county actually back in El Segundo. But another question for you guys, because I don't know, Vista Del Mar, is that Caltrans regulated? Who regulates that? It's not a state highway.
You know, that's interesting. We've done a little research on this, and it looks like it's City of Los Angeles.
I think it's City of LA, because that's from the road diet period. I believe that's City of LA regulated. So that might be interesting, because that's a conversation for a different time. But we may have a point of contact there, because they also run Hyperion, which is really near and dear to our heart. But is there any issue with doing Phase 2 and Phase 1 in different directions? Because I think that we use all of those roads that you have, we would happily put signs and Cheryl markings on, but they're used extensively by micromobility already, so people here are used to seeing them. In a priority of work, I think we would probably have the most interest in Phase 2 if we're going to allocate dollars one way or the other. And I don't know if that the last thing I want to do is inject complexity into your plan at the last minute, and I hate being the good idea fairy. But if that's an option, that may be something that we would be interested in.
Yes, sir. I mean, I think we would still love for you to implement Phase 1. If we can do it simultaneously. I think Phase 2 would take a little bit more coordination and that sort of thing, but we're more than happy to start those conversations now and hopefully line them up and have them implemented simultaneously if possible.
Yeah, and just to piggyback on top of David's remark, and I think where you're going with this, you know, the network is really only as good as its connectivity to other areas of the South Bay. Yes, you have micromobility here. You have a really nice system of bike paths. What we would do is augment that, I think, and the wayfinding might actually prove to be useful in supporting whatever you have now as well. But connectivity to other areas of the South Bay really makes this come alive, if you will. So yes, we're on board. If that's where you want to go, we're here to support that.
Thank you. All right, so before us is to consider directing staff to work with the South Bay COG to implement Phase 1, possibly Phase 2 as quickly as possible, to include designing and implementing the project within the City of El Segundo and prepare a Measure M application for funding for this project. And would someone like to move approval?
Perstuck, so moved.
We have a second?
Nichols, second.
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? None. Okay, 5-0. While we're talking to City of LA, let's see if we can get that crosswalk button moved off the dang street where a car hit it a few years ago and almost killed who was ever there. All right. Great. Let's see. Covered that. Okay, we're on to Resident and Business 2022 survey results regarding satisfaction with city services, Net Promoter Score. Deputy City Manager Barbara Voss. Vote 5-0. Yep.
All right. Good afternoon, Mayor Boyles, members of council. I'm here this evening to present the 5th Net Promoter Customer Satisfaction Survey. We started this process in 2017 at the direction of council. The purpose of the survey is really just to determine overall satisfaction with city services, assess resident loyalty based on a Net Promoter Score. Then there's a section of the survey that is about multiple attributes. So the business survey and the resident survey both have a series of questions to rank attributes of the city's services. And then general image and reputation, what is the perception, what are people thinking about the city out there, and then utilize feedback to improve city services. So that's a key thing. What are we doing with this information that we're receiving? We're not just taking it in and stopping there. We're following up and trying to improve what we can. So this year we did something a little bit different. The first 4 surveys were conducted by a company called Quality Solutions, a consulting firm, and we decided that we wanted to try to take it in-house, so I'm your consultant today. And we purchased a software called Qualtrics that is an industry leader in surveying. They already have a built-in Net Promoter Survey analytics tool that we used. And then the benefit of that is that we can use this Qualtrics to do any number of surveys that we want to try to do. We used it to do an age-friendly city survey already, and we're looking at doing a DEI survey, so it has multiple purposes beyond this. And then one thing I almost forgot, we're doing a transaction survey. So transaction survey is when somebody pays their bill, somebody does a business license, they'll immediately get an email that says, how did we do? The basic question. And it's just a 1-question survey. I'm sure you may have gotten something like this from your gym or a hotel. And if you give a high score, then it's, what did we do that was so great? If you give a lower score, then it's how can we improve, and then thank you, and that's it. So that's going out automatically through Qualtrics. So it's serving a lot of different purposes, having the software. And then our IT department deserves a lot of credit for setting up that transaction-based survey because, we can develop the question, but it has to talk to our systems, and they're doing all that on the back end. And the business license survey has already launched. I'm taking a long time on my first slide. Okay, I'll move along. But I wanted to introduce Jacob Ibarra. Jacob is a part-time employee helping with communications. He's a fairly recent college graduate, and and he's been fantastic in helping me, and also Portland Bates helped set up the initial survey. So our first goal, community engagement, is a big part of that, and customer service and communication. So I wanted to talk a little bit about response rates. This year we sent out 6,747 surveys to residents and businesses combined. Bless you. We got 1,545 completed responses, and that's a 93% increase over 2020. So this Qualtrics is really helping with engagement because we can set it up to send a reminder as often as we want to.
I think I got 5 reminders.
Yes.
That's good.
That means that you did not, no. We counted those. Those are in the record. No, so residents, 3,589, 902 completed, 55% increase. Business, 3,158, 643 completed, 158% increase. So significant. What is a good score? You want to get from 30 to 70. Above 70, you're just, you're doing so well. Net Promoter goes from -100 to 100. So if you're almost at 100, you're really excellent, but great is the 30 to 70 range. So our resident Net Promoter Score was 51. It's the same score as we had in 2020. The way that Net Promoter is calculated, you take the number of promoters minus the number of detractors, and that's your Net Promoter Score. So here's our year-over-year comparison for 5 years. We've dipped down, but we're stabilizing 52, 51, 51. So with the much larger number of respondents to stay at 51, that's good, in my opinion. So this is our 5-year comparison. You can see from this that the number of passives, which is the yellow, and passives are just neutral scores. That's a 7 or an 8. Yeah, okay, 7 or an 8. And we got a little bit more on the passive side, just one down on the promoter side, the green, and a little less on detractors. So it's really pretty stable. Primary issues from the residents. They're concerned about loss of small town. Things are expensive. Housing expensive. And this is a text box where people can say what they want to say. So some of the things are directly related to city services. Others are just, more global matters. But water bills, trash collection cost, condition of roads and facilities, and parking. Resident concerns. So we pulled a few quotes from the residents' concerns. The question was, what should the city improve upon in order to earn a higher score? We got 287 responses to that question. I will not read them all.
The one on profit, were people actually saying profit in their comments, stipulating that we're focused on profit? I mean, we can't make a profit as a city, but it's
Yes,
a
they did.
perception thing, but they specifically mentioned that term.
Yeah, these
That's
are
interesting.
direct quotes.
Thank you.
And
let me know if you want to read more. I'll slow
This
down,
was
but-
post-Hyperion, certainly, because Hyperion was July of last.
Yes, this was certainly.
And it didn't come up at all in terms of
There
the
were a couple
category?
comments about Hyperion, but no.
Oh, interesting. No, but I think it was a common misconception early on that it was us. Maybe staff through communications corrected that.
Yeah,
Oh,
hold
yeah.
Hyperion accountable.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah. So it did come up. Some positive comments, wonderful small town feel, business friendly, good recreation, safe. A lot of kudos to police and fire. Okay, and then the next section so there's the net promoter question. And then the next section is these attribute rankings. And so these are the attributes we asked the residents to rank. Maintenance and upkeep of rec park facilities, quality of the programs, public library, fire paramedic, police department, infrastructure, water and sewer billing, responsiveness, and overall vision of city council. So this is just the scale that we use, the Likert scale. 1 being very dissatisfied, 5 being very satisfied. And then I just wanted to show you those ranges based on research of this Likert gentleman. 4.2 is really where you're 4.2 and above, you're very satisfied. That's more 5s than anything. And then 3.41 to 4.2 is satisfied. So those are the 2 ones that I really want you to look at, because we didn't go to 1.8 or anything like that in our responses. So here's the attribute ranking. We have 2 on the top that are very satisfied. That means above that 4.2 number. And then we have, it looks like we have 3 on the top that are, okay, so that maintenance of and upkeep of recreation parks should be green as well. So it's another good one. And then the satisfied, 4.14, that's almost very satisfied. Anything in the 4 and above is very good. And then goes on down, water and sewer billing, department, customer service, and responsiveness and overall vision of city council. Okay, so resident attribute 5-year comparison. So you can see across the board, when we first did the study in 2017, then each subsequent year to this year, there haven't been any very dramatic shifts. I'll say responsiveness and overall vision of city council, 3.68, 3.56. Compared to the 2019, it's moving up. There's some streets infrastructure is moving down a little bit. 2019 seemed to be a very high scoring year in some of these categories.
So, can I just touch on that one?
Yeah.
That's the last comment, the responses of overall vision of the city council.
Yes.
Given that we do a strategic plan and we're very, we keep to it and we're constantly reevaluating it, this really goes back to how we need to do more proactive push of communication. Goes back to my point of if we're freezing the communication person, when communications are one of our number one priorities. And it's that outreach, and it's, you know, when we were talking about this, doing the state of the city, and one of the things, you know, we've always done a state of the city that was really kind of business-centric, but we really need to do maybe a video of a community-centric state of the city and really share with our city our strategic goals and where we're going with the city. And I think if you do that, and we did like a very proactive push of information of where we're envisioning the city going, I think that score will go up.
And we're getting ready to do State of the City coming up.
Before we move on, though, it's such a wonderful point. You know, the mayor said something earlier tonight and closed, you know, the tale of two cities. And El Segundo always is, you know. I think Councilmember Giroux described it back when we were campaigning in 2018, how it was like El Segundo was the castle and, you know, PCH and El Segundo Boulevard and Imperial, like the moat, you know. And everything outside of the castle walls pays for everything inside of the castle walls. And I remember, I stole it from you. I've used it numerous times since you said it. Never given you credit, of course. But I think you totally hit a nail on the head, because who elects the five of us? It's not the business people, it's the people inside the moat. You know, and so when we do these State of the Cities, I think it would be really nice if we tried to, I mean, do two, or really it's almost like a bifurcated, you know, presentation. Yeah. You know, one presentation for the business community, and then one presentation for, like, you know, Johnny Neighbor, this is what we're doing for you. These are the conversations we have for you. This is what we're working towards for the betterment of your life and your family's life.
Yeah. What we talked about is, you know, you do the State of the City, the luncheon, which the, you know, dog and pony show for the business community, and then for the community, go to the auditorium at the high school and do a panel discussion of, you know, about where we're going, and do a presentation of where we see the city, and just have some type of
like a town hall meeting,
communication where we could have, you know, put something up and invite the community to come and make it a kind of fun little, you know, going forward. I mean, obviously it's too late now, but we have Hometown Fair this Saturday. It would have been, if we're back on our regular cycle, we could be doing the State of the City for the community tied to that town hall. So, I mean, Hometown Fair.
All right. So resident attribute conclusions. Scores below 4.2 represent opportunities for improvement, but they're still satisfied. So they're not bad scores. They're definitely in the solid satisfied range, but you know, if you're very satisfied, there probably isn't much room for improvement, but satisfied, there's still, you know, the opportunity to get up to very satisfied. So that's where we came out on that. And then the final question of the survey was a city improvement question. So they were just asked one simple question: how has the city improved over the last year? And then we used the same methodology, and the city's mean score was 3.34, which is neutral. No improvement, about the same. So here's a breakdown of the responses. You know, there's quite a few in that some improvement, so we're edging up towards that some improvement range. But what we saw year over year was an increase in that significant decline. We're not sure exactly why. So this is the final comparison for all the 5 years. Primary issues among detractors, somewhat consistent, lost that small town concept. A lot of the residents wanted to maintain the small town feel of El Segundo and feel that growth is impeding on that. Too expensive, you know, in 2019. Highest scoring, look at that across the board, exactly the same. Responsiveness, knowledge, and competency of fire and paramedic services every single year. And then the lowest scoring, responsiveness and overall vision of city council. And we move on to the business survey. So our business score was our best ever. Our last year's score was 47, now we're at 55. Falls in the great range. Here's our year-over-year comparison. Started in 2017 at 32, and then moved on up all the way up to 55. We were very happy to see that. And where did it grow the most? It's in those promoters, 67, so up from 63 to 67, and then the number of passives stayed the same, and the detractors lowered significantly.
That's phenomenal. Just to emphasize that, 2/3 of our businesses said that we were a 9 or 10. Just to put that in perspective, that's amazing.
Yeah.
I think we ought to hold ourselves accountable for the residents, the vision and responsiveness of the city council. It's hard not to take that one personally up here on the dais a bit. I think you're right, Councilmember Perstuck. I think it's directly related to the way in which we're demonstrating that we're listening and we're communicating what we're actually doing up here. Because we are getting a lot done. If I reflect on the 6, almost 7 years I've been up here, was it 5, almost 6? Anyway, 16, yeah. We've gotten a lot done in terms of financial reform, so many things. And so I think we just have to do a better job at storytelling. And telling the stories where our people are, going to them with the message through different mediums, because we have gotten a lot done. And so I'm trying to be as objective as possible when I say that, but when I reflect on everything that we have accomplished up here, I don't think it's getting through to the residents in the same way that it's getting through to the business community for some reason, and I'm not sure why that is.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. The perception is not matching the reality. The communication of accomplishments and goals and achievements is really that state of the city speech. How often do we tell other stories about things that city council has done that people are listening to and understanding, and when they're doing this survey thinking about, oh, I remember that, I read about that, I saw that, and give a higher score.
Well,
Again, though, the score is not bad, it's satisfied. It's not a bad score.
I was going to say, I think it's hard. Because Greg Carpenter told me once, like one of my first one-on-ones, he said, Scott, if no one shows up to public communication, you're doing something right. You know, because if the people of town have no idea what you're doing a great job. Because most people, by and large, they don't even want to know we exist up here. They just want to know that their roads don't have potholes, their trash gets picked up, graffiti gets cleaned, their streets get swept, and they don't get parking tickets, right? Like, that's what they want to know. But I think that the miss is when our community sees like a new building going up. They're like, oh, our city council clearly cares about, these developers. And it's like, but that's the developers' money doing that. It's not like it's not like we are investing our money in those developments. And so I think ultimately, as sad as it may seem, we will be judged by the bathrooms at Rec Park for the rest of our lives. And the fact that, we've talked about it and we've complained about it and they're still the same is, in a couple of years, I'm going to be filling this out and judging you and I'm going to say, fix the bathrooms at Rec Park. And so I think that's what it comes down to. And I think we should take that to heart and try to get something done.
Yes, and I remember Mayor Bush saying, all right, if you endorse me, I'll give you updates along the way. He's like, I don't want to hear from you at least 4 years. It's like, that's at that point. But, okay, responsiveness. I see the emails we get copied on, and I would say that 90% of the time this council is responding to constituents within 24 hours, typically within an hour. And I can count the number of times, there have been many where people go like, thank you for responding, because when I lived in the city of LA or somewhere else, we wouldn't even get a response. So maybe I know we shouldn't change the survey when we've already got a baseline, but maybe there's an opportunity to differentiate responsiveness versus vision. Because I think they are two entirely different things. One is forward thinking and what are we doing for the future? The other is how are we responding to our constituents? Right. I'm not sure. Or maybe it's more, are we meeting their needs? But I guess I'm really struggling with that. Sorry.
Yeah, we could conceivably change one of the attributes. The Net Promoter Score is one question. And so the attributes, we just wouldn't have the 5-year. We'd have to start fresh next year on whatever we change or add or take away, and start collecting data from that point on. All right, so the detractor concerns for businesses, issues related to supporting small businesses, do more for small businesses, sort of a theme of don't just look out for the big businesses, help the small businesses as well. Utility, water billing, trash collection cost. parking issues. So there you go. Recognize small businesses too. Garbage fees for a 6+ are excessive and unfair. Everything's too expensive. Parking and enforcement of parking, to an earlier point. 20-minute parking for clients is filled with workers from other businesses, makes clients unhappy. Certain amount of growth, but not too much. Positive, great place to run a successful business, great community, high standards, safety and security, good city services, business friendly, excellent public services. So some great comments there. And this is just a sampling. We had 267 responses. All right, so here's our attribute rankings for businesses, slightly different than the residents. Competency of the Development Services Department, zoning policies, business development and attraction policies, police department services, fire department and field inspection, and business license renewal. So again, we're looking at that 4.2 and above. So business license renewal, doing really well, excellent. Availability and responsiveness to the police department, also a really high score. And then the lowest scoring was the city zoning policies. And if you look year over year, we have the city zoning policies consistently are on the lower end. Business license renewal is doing really, again, I said they're doing really well. You know, some areas of improvement, development services, but a 3.81 again is really a good score. So some solid scores throughout here. Scores below 4.2 represent opportunities for improvement. Zoning policy was the lowest. Responsiveness and knowledge and competency of the fire department and field inspection. And then availability and responsiveness of police department and business license renewal, number 1 and 2. Overall city improvement, and I want to go back one. Let's see. So we're at 3.54. That's the satisfied range. Here's the breakdown. About the same, and some improvement were exactly the same. So that was interesting. 447 responses to this question. This is what I was looking for. Okay, so see the numbers of participants. We're going from 282 to 643. Net promoter score, 47 to 55. Primary issue among detractors, support small businesses. And then attribute with the highest score, business license renewal process. So that's kudos to the finance department. And then attribute with the lowest score is city zoning policies. And city zoning policies has come up almost every single year as the lowest scoring. So there's some concern about appropriate zoning for the type of projects and things that people want to do, businesses want to do.
Barbara, is there a follow-up question that we can ask on the support small business piece of it? Because I think that one's a little bit of a head scratcher for me. Because it's come up twice now in the last two years, and I know that we really push hard to support each other, especially
now,
restaurants, and
yeah.
especially since the pandemic. So that one's just, it's a head scratcher for me. I guess I'm trying to figure out what is it that we're not doing that might be something that they are looking for.
Or if there's a specific industry, specific small business type that doesn't feel like it's noticed or competed,
You know, because even when you go back to that right before that, nope, you keep skipping. Go back to the one that had the color chart, the bar chart right there. So
okay,
something about not improvement, about the same, is that if you're already in a good situation, you say, okay, then nothing significantly changed from here to here, so I'm good. So I get that piece of it. I think the small business piece is the one I don't.
Yeah. So
I don't know how to change that now based on how, especially our response to everything the past couple of years. So. Right,
and I was flipping back and forth because supporting small business is not the attribute. It's not one of the attributes. The attributes related to that are business development and attraction policies. That's the closest. So we were looking for themes on comments. So that's what came up the most in terms of the issues that people with concerns mentioned in their comments.
Okay, so it was the detractors, which was a small. I think if I told it up, it was like 50 people out of what you added up. The detractors are in the if you go back to your little line chart there.
Yeah.
That's what you're talking about, right?
So actually, you would think that, but no. So this is where it gets sort of interesting. So when we ask the question of, okay, so how do you rank us on overall city improvement? Some people could give us a significant decline and then say a positive comment. So the small business comes up in those comments. So they could be detractors, they could be promoters. That's not really measured in terms of the net promoter score. That's just measured based on review of all the comments and what came up, what was most prevalent. And I think the comments here, so recognize small businesses too is the only one I have in here, but you know, there were quite a few comments that mentioned small businesses in particular. Okay, and hope you guys aren't getting dizzy with all this flipping. Okay, so conclusion. So we had the highest engagement rate over previous year's surveys, so we're happy about that. The business net promoter score increased significantly, 7 percentage points. Resident remains the same. Zoning policies and responsiveness and overall vision of City Council continue to be on the lower end. Business license renewal process and knowledge and competency of the paramedic service are on the highest end. Supporting local small businesses and preserving the small town feel continue to be driving concerns for resident and business detractors or those who gave the negative comments. And then overall, the businesses felt that the city had some improvement over the last year, while residents were neutral on whether or not the city had improved. And if you have any other questions?
I do. So one of the things, and I had brought it before, is especially around the businesses, I really think we should be looking at creating a concierge program for our business community, especially our larger business community, and tapping into like creating a program where a business has a direct contact at the city to use some of our facilities, our parks and recs, you know, or who do they contact, and create a concierge program, and they will obviously pay for it, hopefully be revenue generating, help pay for the staff that would be required to manage it. I think that would give, you know, give us the ability to offer better service to our customers, to our businesses, and help grow that connection.
That's an interesting one. Yeah, you mentioned that before. That's an interesting idea. Is there a way, Barbara, to pinpoint through Qualtrics who the people were? Because I know it's not anonymous. You can,
yes,
right? Who said do more for small business, just so you could do a mini focus group with those folks to better understand what they're looking for?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and Christina's here this evening. Christina Ravella is our economic development coordinator. She calls all the businesses. She does all the follow-up on the business survey.
Oh, cool.
And, you know, we address, like I said, we address the ones that we can, and we can ask additional questions, clarifying questions, so that we can better understand, you know, what the experience is behind some of the comments.
Great. Good job with so many responses. That's really impressive.
Thank you.
Great job. Thank you. Okay, next up is outdoor dining in the public right-of-way in the downtown area. Councilmember Nickel and I will be leaving the dais.
All right, we are on to item 19. The mayor and Councilmember Nickel are recused from this item and have since absquatulated from the facility. Item 19, outdoor dining in the public right-of-way in the downtown area. Who will report on this item?
Well, we're going to have a combination of staffers on this one, Mayor Pro Tem. Michael Allen will kick things off, and I think Elias and Barbara will contribute portions of the presentation also.
Mr. Allen, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Before I dive in, did you want to save the RRM conversation until we can combine the two, or how?
Yeah, I think that as we get to discussion on, particularly around option 3 of this, is that the appropriate time to sort of fold it in? A reasonably simple comment on that, so.
Well, they're interrelated, but they're two separate asks. One's specific to parking, the other is specific to a modified scope to include.
Yeah, and I think that because they both contain a modification, you'll see what I'm going when I get there.
All right, so I won't belabor the topic much. We've been before the council before to discuss the outdoor dining, the reason why we need to either unwind or modify or look at a long-term strategy as the pandemic subsides, and we're looking at the governor potentially rescinding the orders that allow us to continue the outdoor dining in the public right-of-way. We need to think long-term. Last we spoke, our next steps were to engage with the community, that is business owners and property owners. Staff did that. We had 2 separate community meetings, one in person, one online. We also had a outreach component that solicited about 99 comments that were included as an attachment to the staff report, all of which, including the participants in person and on the virtual call, were expressed general support, which was not surprising for outdoor dining. There was some dissenting views on concerns of impacts on businesses that are not necessarily restaurants. So, for example, a general retail or office tenant that is losing their parking or ease of access for their constituents in close proximity to their businesses, particularly on Richmond Street, where the entire street is blocked, and there's a couple of property owners who have concerns because they are actually not able to lease space outs currently, or they're currently experiencing difficulty leasing space out to non-restaurant tenants, and they are in a building in a location where you couldn't locate a restaurant because they're on the second floor, or they're just in a configuration that they could not convert the space into a restaurant. So overall, there was general support for the concept of outdoor dining, both on Richmond and Main Street, but there were some dissenting concerns amongst the participants. So tonight, staff is here to discuss a couple different asks of the body for us to proceed, one of which is to establish a process for Richmond. Staff's recommendation is that we provide the tools and the process, which Public Works Director Elias can expand on, but we explain that process. We provide the application to the tenants or the businesses and the property owners, and we put the onus on them to go through the process to vacate Richmond if that's what their desire is, or some other form of outdoor dining that requires or necessitates the vacation or the unwinding of the easement that's currently there. The second piece is that we're asking for direction to include the outdoor dining component in the downtown specific plan study that's currently underway. I know earlier, Mayor Pro Tem, you were mentioning that was a discussion, I think, in the very early days of the award of the contract for RRM, which was in April of 2021. To my knowledge, it was never done. They never included that as an optional item. And so I would need to go to RRM and ask them if we want to include this as a work product. I need a quote, I need a scope, I need a cost estimate and tasks so that we could bring that before the council for approval. So those are the 2 main asks. There's a third ask, which is to revisit, if desired, the conversation about whether or not we establish a sunset date for unwinding the outdoor dining in the parking lane at all, or if we do that at a later date. We still don't have an idea of when the governor is going to rescind the authorities for us to continue the outdoor dining due to the pandemic, but it's on the table to talk about if we want to establish that sunset date for the outdoor dining that extends into the parking lane. And that sums up my presentation. I'm joined by Elias and Barbara and Mark, who are all part of the presentations, and Christina. Where'd she go? she was in there too. And so I think it would be helpful if Elias could help identify or outline what the general overview of the process to vacate Richmond would look like. It's potentially costly, it's potentially time consuming. There's a lot of unknowns that would need to be studied, and so I think it would be helpful if Elias, if you outline that.
Sure. Good evening again. So the process, in summary, we would like to have the property owners to agree on what would they like to change the language of the existing easement that we have today. The existing easement allows for pedestrians and for traffic to use that public easement. So once you change that,
to be clear for the people at home, that is an easement the city enjoys on their property to go
That
back
is
and
correct.
forth, not an easement they have to sit in the road. And I want to make sure that people understand that.
That is correct. So maybe I could explain I'm sure everybody has heard the word right-of-way. The right-of-way is the abbreviation of right of passway. Many years ago in this country, that's how the expression started and evolved in right-of-way. Right-of-way actually means the right of passway. It means pedestrians, traffic, cars, whatever, vehicles, what have you. So once there's a proposal to change the language of the easement. Normally, typically, it requires the individuals, the owners that are abutting that piece that the easement needs to change. It starts with a petition, with a request from them. And they need to come to the city with a proposal at how they want this to be rewritten, how they want this to be developed. And in the process, the city will engage in conversation with them. And frankly, the very first step, we want to make sure that we are going to be able to change that without a great adverse impact on our traffic circulation and other things. We may very well, and we must look at the existing utilities that are in there, because existing utilities are part of franchise agreements. They are allowed to be there. So you don't want to really change that in some language that would allow them to build on top of those easements, because they couldn't. So there are certain restrictions that the city will engage in conversation with them. Ultimately, there's going to have to be a public hearing, and notices will have to be sent to the adjacent property owners within a certain few hundred feet. And all of that needs to be all that information needs to be shared with the adjacent property owners in that public hearing, and then it ultimately would have to come back to the city council, and the city council would have the ultimate decision. In the process, there's a good chance that we may have to do things like environmental analysis, SECA, to make sure that environmentally there is no impact. So this is really a brief summary of the process. When we met with the property owners as Michael indicated, we had 2 meetings. They all had a desire to get this process going, but I do not feel that they were 100% all in favor of exactly what they wanted. So we indicated to them that they really need to go back and meet, and in fact they volunteered to go back and meet among themselves to see what kind of language they would like to propose on changing the current easement. Some indicated that the best way to approach this is to create a business improvement district. Well, if you do that, that would work, but you still need to be cognizant of what you are going to be improve or built, particularly with respect to the existing utilities, drainage, and things like that will kick in. Also, the liability. If the city is going to be allow a certain business improvement district, where does it begin? Where does it end? Who's going to be responsible if there's any accident? So all of these needs to be worked out. In fact, these were brought up in the meeting. So ultimately, I believe the direction that we provided them is talk among yourselves, find out exactly what you would like to see, and come back to the city, and we'll do our best to accommodate them. So that's where we are. So the process that I went over is just in a high elevation. There are details, but I'll be more than happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Sassoon. Mr. Allen, anything else?
No, thanks, Elias. I just wanted to reiterate, I think it's well outlined for form of the conversation on page 3 and 4 of the staff report. The first piece is whether or not we want to discuss the establishment of a sunset date in general for outdoor dining now or later. The second piece of that is folding in the scope of outdoor dining in general and the development of a long-term program that doesn't include the vacation of an entire street into the ongoing downtown-specific plan with RRM. And then on page 4 of the staff report, just differentiating option A or B of how we proceed with discussing, exploring, studying the vacation of Richmond Street. And again, staff's preference would be option B, which is initiated by the public. Of course, we would provide them with the process, materials, resources, or direction to resources to proceed with that process. But that's if you wanted a suggestion for flow of conversation.
And if I might just weigh in on the kind of the cessation of the use of the right-of-way out there as it's currently being done. And there's a lot of concern by staff. We heard the public. They all want it. We have a lot of concern, though, that we can't really tilt up. The city can't get in place a permanent program and extend out this temporary program that long. That's just doesn't seem likely or practical. I mean, the governor hasn't, at this point, the emergency order is still out there, but the city independently needs to make findings that, or needs to be able to defend the finding that these businesses still need to be out in the right-of-way, which is getting tougher to do. They have 100% occupancy allowed indoors. So that's an issue if we were to get challenged on that. Some of the businesses are not happy about what's out there currently. Another issue is the safety issues. We do have, we did this very quickly, and it was done to help the businesses. In fact, a couple of the business owners were very thankful and recognized what the council had done and what the staff had done to help them out during the pandemic. But we didn't go through a lot of process and building codes and things. So there are things out there that are, potentially problematic, and we do have some indemnity from these businesses, but they have not deep pockets or a lot of insurance, so there is some risk in leaving these out there for an extended period of time. Is there a bright line as to when they have to shut down? No, but it is an issue that, it's coming up as to, again, there's no bright line, but we do have concerns about how long they stay out there.
Councilmember Giroux.
So a couple things. The sunset date that we're talking about, bottom line is, if this comes down from the state, it's not going to be, hey, we're telling you on Friday and you unwind it by Sunday. Okay, we have some time here, so I don't want that to get us in the way here. That to me, judging from what I'm hearing, we're talking 2024 in certain cases is one date I heard. Do I think it's going to happen? I don't know. In the end, I don't think that's a pressure point here. One of the things you mentioned was the parking lanes, and do we want to offer a sunset date on that? I think that's the easiest one to say. It's fine right now the way it is. I think we talked about that last time. I think you've unwound most of it. I know Sasal's waiting on a barrier. I know you talked about that already. You're good. I have no issue with that piece of it right there. I do think that we're looking at a couple things. One thing is, do we have what the total cost to the city has been in the past 2 years during this pandemic? And I mean actual cost, not, hey, we could have charged you for this, but we didn't. What's the actual cost? Is there even a ballpark on that?
we could calculate that because we could guesstimate the square footage and we could come up with that, but.
What's the actual cost? Like, what do we paid out X?
Yeah.
Just that. I don't care about anything else.
Yeah, the actual cost was the purchase of the barricades and the staff time in installing them, and we could come up with that.
Can you give me an approximate? Is it
sure.
$100,000?
It was less than that. So those barricades there are about 300-400 feet apiece. So there are about
I'm not going to hold you to a budget. Just tell me,
let's say at the most 100,000.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So we know that. All right. So that is, again, we decided we wanted to do that. We want to do it for the community. So I think we're good there. I think a couple of things that you mentioned are important. Number one, obviously there is an appetite for this, number one. But number two, you have businesses that are being negatively affected by it. So I do think all of those things, we have to take all that into consideration. The onus, from what you're telling me, really seems to be on the business owners to make this happen, or to formulate a plan that will allow it to happen. Am I hearing what you're saying correctly? And I read through the staff report, and that's the impression I got.
I think we're very specifically saying that about Richmond.
About Richmond, okay.
Yeah.
So are they aware of that?
Yeah, I think, Mark and Barbara and Elias and I made it rather abundantly clear during our call with the property owners specifically, but we also discussed it during our meeting with the business owners that there is a cost that would be their burden to cover, and I think I think I shared earlier during the call with the property owners, I think we were a little surprised at the willingness, without knowing what that was, there was still appetite to explore it. And I don't want to diminish the dissenting opinions and concerns that there were, but there was still an appetite to have the conversation and explore that regardless of the cost burden.
All right, well, that's an important piece, because if they're willing, if the discussion is already they're willing to look into it and do the legwork to get it done, and we can assist with staff time, that's fine. I get it. There's a willingness, though.
I'd like to qualify that, though, that in both meetings, we had 4 property owners in one meeting, and how many people do we have at the businesses at the other meeting? Like 10?
2 restaurants.
Yeah, so.
2 restaurants.
There's a little,
Yeah.
I mean, there's not been, we need a lot more engagement. The city needs a lot more engagement from these businesses, the property owners, to make this work. I mean, the people, the handful of people that are there, there's some interest, but there wasn't a good turnout.
So I think that we need to, I think there might be a bit of a disconnect with their understanding of what, I think they're waiting for us and we're waiting for them.
Well, that's the reason why we had the property owner meeting, because I think, yeah, there is a disconnect. Is it the tenants? Is it the restaurant owners who need to come forward? Actually, it's both, but primarily it's the property owners, because
So
they have to take on that responsibility of managing that piece of property.
But do they know what to do? So it's kind of like, we're saying to the property owners, you got to take the responsibility to make this happen. But if you don't know how to make that happen,
right?
I think we need to help them along a little bit here. I think there needs to be some more dialogue. Maybe start off with some additional meetings and just some workshop meetings. And I think there needs to be a little. I think at this juncture, there's still a lot of confusion, just from the communications I get. I think there's uncertainty, confusion, and I think we just need to.
Right. I think with the property owners who were there at the meeting, the ones who attended, and I think there were a couple that had some technical issues getting on. I think that conversation went really well, and we did make that connection of, okay, you as property owners need to get together as a group and decide what you want to ask the city to do, and petition to proceed with this. So I think they got a good understanding there of what they need to do, and the direction from that was that they were going to get together, aside from the city, and have a conversation about how they wanted to proceed.
So I think, in all fairness, then it would be, we need to give them time to formulate that plan, and help them along, and give them some guidelines to say, hey, can you have a plan to us by this date? And so that to obviously push it along, but also help them formulate that plan. But I think at this juncture, there's just a lot of uncertainty, and, the rumor mill goes around like it just.
Well, I just to sort of take that a little further, I think that doing so is the presumption that there's consensus, that there's a desire to move forward. And I don't think we have consensus in the business community or the property ownership, a consensus to move forward. Now, that those who participated thought that outdoor dining was great and it was a good idea, but when it got in, and Elias sort of made reference to this, when it got into the weeds of what the outdoor dining on Richmond looks like, there was not agreement amongst all four parties. There was no agreement. There were a couple different ideas, but there was one property owner who very clearly said that everything that you're talking about is a problem to me. And that was different than his opinion that he thought outdoor dining was a good idea, but there's certainly not consensus. And I think by staff holding more workshops and facilitating this, we're doing so without knowing or without any confirmation that there's consensus amongst that group. And so what we're asking is that the onus needs to be put on them to find that consensus. We don't have the capacity to do that. We were a little disappointed with the turnout. We got 99 comments, which is great. I thought this room would be chock full of people interested in pursuing this, and there were 10 people, many of which were representatives of the same establishments. So I think for Richmond Street, our desire is to put the onus on those who are interested in doing this to facilitate that process, and we can tell them how to do it. We can tell them what they need to do to submit an application to us and what that process is, but we can't do that for them. They need to corral their support and reach that consensus amongst those who are impacted.
Right, and then the city staff or the city does a lot of work towards implementing this, and then we find out after the fact that 70% of the property owners are not interested in pursuing this, then we've wasted a lot of time.
Right.
So we need that consensus before we move forward.
And part of is it part of it, so right now we have the street blocked completely. Is the solution that it's maybe not blocked completely, but there's, I guess what you're saying is you need the property owners to come with a solution that's that's agreed upon by all the stakeholders in that area.
Right, inclusive of stakeholders who may not immediately own or have establishments on that street itself, but within a proximity of the area as well.
And what happens is, just hypothetically, say there's 10 property owners, I don't know how many there are, and 9 of them say yes and 1 of them says no.
Yeah, I believe that will become a policy discussion that we will need to then have, and I think it'll be staff's, place to provide the analysis and make a recommendation. But Mark, I don't know if you have another thought.
Well, that might come down to if there was 9 out of 10, then it might come down to, then the city may, depending on how you feel about it, may want to get involved and may want to offer some incentive or figure out how to make that 10th party happy and want to go along. This is where, there are potential ways to get one to get on board with an idea. Until we know what their issues are, I can't tell you what that is. Now, if you have 5 out of 10, that's a much bigger carry.
Right.
But if you just, if you've got 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10 that are interested, then there's probably, you'd like to think there's some solution to the 1 or 2 people that are holding out. But again, at this point, we don't really have that.
So at this juncture, the communication to the businesses and property owners is they need to meet and concur and come up with a plan that is acceptable to the majority of them, and then they can present that to the city.
They will need to propose it and apply through Public Works for a vacation of Richmond for whatever parameters that they're proposing.
I'm going to take this a slightly different direction, if I may, City Attorney, and that is, I think this thing has been successful because the city took a big plunge and showed a little bit of leadership, and I think that clearly what people are asking for is everyone wants to know the plan. and they're looking for someone to have the plan and asking them to collaborate informally and come up with a plan, I think it may be unlikely. I don't know where all those property owners live. They may not be around here. It certainly would seem like that's probably the case. So I think that we may be abdicating our role a bit if we just roll it out to them. But this is where it ties somewhat to my piece from the consent calendar, is that 13 months ago, we spent nearly $500,000 with a firm to ask for a plan that would touch on all of these areas so we could try and come up with a cohesive piece that, in theory, satisfies a public and tenant demand for amenities there with a parking demand from neighbors so they're not being strangled. So a bit of my RRM question before we get to some of these other pieces is that what have they been doing with our $500,000, and do they have any work product we can work from? Because right now we're making a quilt with a lot of weird patches. I'd love to know if they have anything they could show us about, hey, here's we were thinking about something last September. Here's what it might look like.
It's funny because I wrote the exact same RMP. What did we get?
Yeah, well,
like, what did we?
We're $450,000 in. Do they have anything?
The short and disappointing answer is no. The
Why would we give them any more?
The longer answer is we haven't. That process just got started about 4 or 5 months ago. So we're not that far. What they've completed. I can't speak to what happened in April 2021. Those components were not included in the scope. I would imagine that due to the pandemic and a lot of other priorities and projects that the planning division was working on, this is something that did not get started shortly after April 21st. It actually got started shortly after I was hired in August of this last year. And so they're about 6-7 months into that process. What they've done for the first half of the first 6 months was a lot of background research, a lot of development of background materials, and they have engaged with the development community within, and property owners and residents and business owners within the downtown specific plan. That's essentially where they're at. I would venture to guess they're about 15% of the way into the process. We have a solid 9 months left of them building out the downtown specific plan amendment. And so
but any ideas? This is not a huge area. This
well,
is Shanghai.
The problem is
they
they've
didn't know where to put 40 cars.
This was not included in their scope. So they've actually been asking the city, what's happening? We need to know what's happening so that we can include it in our conversations with the business owners, the property owners, the residents. And there has been no response because nothing has happened yet. And so part of this is taking all of those different pieces and putting it back where you're referring to where it should have been, which is originally in the scope with RRF.
Forgive me though, but is it possible that they could be designing a downtown plan with no mind to parking? Like
there was a parking component, but the parking study that's being done is different.
Well, I'm not talking about a total study and usage and utilization, but when they sit here with the risk board of downtown, that there has to be a part of like, oh, we're going to need to put these cars somewhere. Like, they have any ideas?
But not at this time, because they're not that far along in the process.
I'm in the wrong business, because you can give me $400,000 and I can do a little better than that, I think.
I want to make sure that everybody's aware, we have not spent $450,000 at this point on this contract with RRM. I don't know the dollar amount, but we're only a half a year to 7 months into the process, about 15% of the way into it, so we've spent a fraction of that, in my opinion.
Are they the right company?
I'll make you a great deal.
Are they the right company?
I wasn't part of the selection, and I don't know who the other companies were, but I believe that RRM I know them. They're a reputable company. They do specific plans on a regular basis throughout the state of California, let alone the country. And I think this is something that they would consider some of their bread and butter. It's just the staff initiative at the time in April wasn't there. The capacity to start this process in April 2021 was just not there. The ability to engage with the community in April 2021 was just not there. And the overall staff availability was just not there to start this process. So it got started later than what the intention was.
Because I think there's some conceivable, when we had sort of the grand visions of, okay, what satisfies all of these competing but not necessarily adversarial interests. are, okay, if the easement is for a right-of-way, does it have to be an automotive right-of-way? Can it be a pedestrian right-of-way? If it's a pedestrian right-of-way or it becomes a business improvement district, can that fund off-site parking that is within, 150 feet or usable? And those are things that right now would be really, really handy tools in our toolbox, because I feel as though we're going blind, and it's sort of, I think we are abdicating a key piece of leadership if we just put it to, 6 or 7 property owners over there to say, well, get back to us, and we have tenants who are thriving and tenants who are suffering, and sort of looking for us to at least let them know, what does my summer, fall prognosis look like? So I think even if there's no hard, fast sundown we see coming from the state, we kind of owe it to those business owners to give them a series of planning benchmarks. Like, hey, look, you need to talk to your, if we're going to put it on the property owners, we should be communicating to those tenants, like, hey, you need to be asking your property owner, what's our prognosis for that? The city is willing to listen, and I'm not sure if there's administrative steps we have to take to get a bid started. So, hey, we would entertain a business improvement districts, provided that there's parking as a consideration for those neighboring businesses.
Yeah,
and we need you to make that decision by November 1st or something.
Parking is something that certainly can be included in a business improvement district. And this is a very iterative process, the way I look at it, but it takes a lot of effort by the city and the property owners and the businesses to get engaged, and so far we're not getting that engagement level. But yes, the business improvement district, it's basically assessment district, and those don't have to be held along with any particular election. They're done by mail ballot and whatnot. So but you need to also know, what properties are in, what are you funding, over what period of time are you funding it. And we have financial advisors on contract through the finance department that can help us with the details. But yeah, those things can be done. But somehow this all needs to come together with the property owners and what they want, what they're willing to do, what fits in with the city's vision. It's certainly, cities do these things. It can be done. It's just going to take a lot of effort.
Okay,
well, I don't know that. Just one more. I'm not sure there's energy on the or a great deal of vigor on the city's end to impose an improvement district on those properties. I mean, certainly we can do that, right? We can put to a ballot and see if they answer it, right? But
we can, but you have to also identify what you're paying for. So we would then need to identify, what improvements are we going to put in this? It's an assessment district, basically. What improvements are we going to put into it, and ask these people to pay for it? So part of that is, well, what are you going to improve?
I'm going to let Councilmember Pierce go before I rope the city manager into this against his will.
So I actually propose that we push this out, because, like you said, we're 15% done with this business improvement, with our MP. I mean, I'm looking at your department, Michael. You guys are in the middle of a remodel, in the middle of launching of a new system. And then now you're adding you're already tasked with a lot going on right now.
We have a few things going on.
You got a lot going on, and you're trying to launch this new system, which is very different from what you were doing before, which was not a system. And you're in this remodel, and now you have this engagement with RMP to do this downtown zoning district. I just, no wonder it didn't get done. And so we've already been pushed this out, we're into this now a year and a half. Another 6 months isn't gonna kill. And I mean, it's not gonna, well, I shouldn't say that, but it's not gonna do anything. And let's reevaluate at the end of summer. Because I don't think the state of California is gonna make any changes prior to that date. And then we can just leave the parking, leave the parklets, let restaurants in the parklets, leave Richmond, and then reevaluate in September. And by then, hopefully, you'll be in a position to actually put some time into it. I mean, I don't know, that's just my proposal.
I think it's a solid theory that nothing will be done about outdoor dining before the November election. I think that's a pretty good piece of state electoral politics question. But now, City Manager, welcome to the show.
Yes.
You were involved in the development of 3rd Street Promenade.
Correct.
Which at the time was not a vacation spot.
Not at all.
Now, what did that process look like? Now, obviously, that is a pedestrian right-of-way, and people weren't driving on it. But, or maybe people were driving
At the time, they were
driving on it.
Yes, yeah.
So
You could shoot a
walk us
cannon
through
down
that
there.
process.
You're taxing my memory, but from what I recall, it was a 6-block area. We issued roughly $13 million in certificates of participation, supported by the creation of a benefit assessment district, where each property was assessed based upon the level of benefit they were receiving from the improvements. Coupled with the outdoor dining piece, which the city owned that right-of-way, so we actually levied additional fees on the size of the outdoor dining pad. So that revenue was coming into, and we took the $13 million, improved the sidewalks, the landscaping, the lighting, the banners, the parking. There were 6 parking structures, which helped. We added levels to the parking garages, so it was a complete improvement district that was financed by these annual assessments, I think over maybe a 20-year window.
Was any of something like that, I know we didn't have a great participation from those property owners, but a methodology like that, was that one of the things you discussed where we had someone with the face of revulsion say, I have a lot of problems with this?
Not to this level. In fact, the suggestion of business improvement district was mentioned by one of the property owners that knows the city fairly well. But we did not discuss that to that level, and I'm not sure if everybody was on board, frankly.
Well, I mean, this is the historic commercial street of the town. I mean, there is an ample opportunity here with energy from tenants and residents, and not a lot of clarity from property owners about whether we could do something very interesting here. And as confused as I sort of am about RRM's progress thus far, full disclosure, I'm having my kitchen worked on, so I'm very sensitive to slow progress. I would be very, very interested in communicating them directly that absent a modification from the consent item about parking, say that goes hand in hand with them speeding up this development plan of downtown and providing us some guidance. If in the meantime, I'll caveat that, if in the meantime, those property owners come together and say, no, we've got a plan and we want to go with it, I would absolutely entertain with that. So if we want to publish to them a process that they can go with, that doesn't impact you, that just involves you handing out, hey, here are the steps if you guys are going to rock with it, I'm fine with that. But I would be very curious in using this opportunity to do something novel and unique in that area.
I guess
Councilmember Drew, go ahead.
So just a couple things real quick. Number one, I guess in that discussion, did the property owners, I guess, really have an idea of what this is going to cost? I think in the end, that's probably what they're looking at right now, and it's an unknown, and it's difficult for them to make a decision unless they really understand what their cost is going to be. So I think that might be one of the first things that has to get across. Second thing I have for you is on this suggestion on the RRM design group is simply that you said we're only 15% in. I think just we need to get a timeline. Hey, they're going to come back and give us a report on X date, all right, and on Y date, just to keep us, to keep each other honest on it. So it's difficult to sit there and say, why do we need another $20,000 allocated when only 15% of the 450 has been used?
Well, because the rest covers the rest of the scope of the project.
Well, I know, but right now, we haven't seen anything yet. So what I'm saying is, I don't think anybody's necessarily against the extra 20, but we would like to see a little bit of fruits of the labor, if you would, on what's been done, if I'm not
That's right.
speaking out of
I don't
turn.
think we need the FAO Schwartz package. Let's
Yeah,
go
I
Toys
just-
R Us. Give me the
give me some.
main
So
one. Give me
I
the
can
cocktail
commit
napkin.
to, before the end of this week, getting that out. I've been providing the city's internal team with a monthly update on it, so we can easily extend that to city council, which will have the deliverables and the tasks at hand, but we can provide
And
that.
one last thing, which is just kind of like a little bit of a just thought process, is that if it becomes untenable to make it a permanent closed down street, just hypothetically, and not saying anything permanent, is there an idea that you could make it like a summer restaurant series where you could actually say starting from like Memorial Day through Labor Day, and make it just an event that goes, say, Thursday to Sunday every single week or something like that. If nothing else works out, are there options like that we can work out that would not require us to go through this whole process, and instead just make it as, hey, it's a 3-month event? Is that anything to even look at, discuss? I'm just saying, in case of emergency, you got to pull the chute, and we got one thing left that we can do to salvage something for outdoor dining.
Yeah, legally, I think it's possible. I mean, one of the things we're wrestling with is the ABC issues and what those are going to, their current lax regulations are going away, and that, the answer is yes, but would you be able to serve alcohol out there? Maybe not. Maybe. I mean, I know that they're getting lobbied by cities to permanently relax some of these or make these sort of areas more, make it the ability to serve alcohol in these kind of right-of-way areas, but we don't have an answer to that. I mean, the way it's currently structured is the more strict rules are going to come back in play in 2024.
2024, so you're still talking a pretty good amount of time.
It's a year from the time the governor announces the end, but no later than the middle of 2024. So.
Definitely not before the
It's
November
2020
election.
it's 2022, right?
He will not uncork Elliot Ness and Agent Stone. So we have some items in front of us for this, and let's see if we can do some of these in order. So first, do we have consensus to receive and file the report? Yes. Okay, so we got that one out. Second, and I'm gonna move this, that we're going to direct staff to amend the agreement with RM Consulting to include development of a long-term outdoor dining program as part of the downtown specific plan, and include parking, and include the ramifications of, would it be a business improvement district for that? Or how would we term,
A
what's a potential for, I mean, promenade-ish sounds a little informal.
Business improvement district.
Service improvement district? I will move that. Does anyone second that?
Do you have a question, Michael?
Well, I'm just not sure what action we're taking. The parking amendment is a separate.
It's a separate one, but that's what I was glaring at the attorney. Can I fold that consent item in with this thing? Because it's the same contract?
But what will happen is they're going to come back to me and they're going to say that the current scope does not include the development of a long-term outdoor dining program. So then we'll have to either look at pieces of the existing contract to eliminate, modify, reduce in order to augment that cost, or come back before the council with that decision.
I think that we can do that. So I'd be okay with a change in scope. I think we've been patient with them. Get a little interest-free loan. They were having a great time, and we'll amend that scope. So I will move that. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
So again, to direct staff to amend the agreement with RM Consulting to include development of a long-term outdoor dining plan as part of the downtown specific plan update, to also increase their scope to include the parking from the consent item, and to explore a potential, or the viability of potential business improvement district. I have a second. No, I have a second.
You have an issue with that?
Yeah, I want to make sure you want this amendment, but with no additional dollars associated.
We'll have to come back. Yeah, they would come back and say we need.
We'll tweet. We'll look at that.
Okay, so that one, I think we've got 3-0 on that.
Yes.
All right. Okay, so that's the difficult part. No, sorry, that's the easy part. Now the difficult part, do we have any interest in establishing a date for the removal of all temporary outdoor dining?
No.
Okay, we do not have interest in that at this time. Do we want to instruct development services to provide the public with a process by which they could remove the city's easement on the right-of-way? Is that the right way to phrase that?
Yeah, the easiest way would be to look at option 1A and B.
Option 1A and 1B.
Yeah, so it would be either A, city-initiated process, we need to.
Or public initiated.
Or public initiated.
I move for B, public initiated.
So this would allow them to short-circuit our comprehensive RRM plan and just say, hey, we've got this. You've given us the tools, and we want to take forward outdoor dining under these auspices.
Well, because I think it requires them to really dig into this and how they're going to work it and how they're going to pay for it and all the ramifications of it. And the other aspect, we're the ones doing all of it.
So I will second that, so we can provide them information. T moved, I seconded. All in favor of 1B?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. So 1B, that makes your life easier if they go with 1B. All right, is there anything else?
So the only other thing is we had put an end date to the Richmond Street. I think we need to kick that out.
Yeah,
because that we needs to.
The current end date is August 4th?
Yeah,
Is
we need to kick that out to give them time.
August 4th or 7th?
17th.
Yeah, it was mid-August. Yeah.
Maybe we should kick it to the end of the year just to give us time to.
Well, the concern before, remember, was also the change in the weather and the way that may affect the electrical out there. Do I have any?
I would like to extend it to the end of the year.
Till December 31st, 2022.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And hopefully by then,
We'll have
we'll have a plan. And if not, we can extend it again, right?
All right. So we've passed all kinds of things that weren't on the menu. I salute us for.
So just for clarification, Michael, you guys are gonna do an outreach to the business owners and the business property owners, let them know what we're doing, and then tell them we've included in our business
downtown specific plan.
But if they want to short circuit it, they have that option.
Sure.
And they could come earlier to us with the plan.
We'll do, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I just want to clarify, so the one.
There better be a flow chart.
Yeah, so the one item that was approved was amending the RRM contract so they could develop an outdoor dining program for the downtown. And then the second 2B, whatever it was, would be that.
If they want to.
But this is just for Richmond, that the public would come in. And
That's right. They would effectively short circuit, they would, absent any instruction or big planning from us, say, we have come together, you've given this chart of what it takes for me to end the city's easement and take possession of this land and use it in a specific way. They could move ahead on their own with that.
Okay, thank you. Make sure I understood.
Yes, we'll initiate that process.
And, you know, Michael, I know you said you'd get back to us with information from what you have from RRM next week, later this week. I know you're going through a lot of stuff, so I just want to make sure we're not.
It's already written. I just need to hit the send button.
Okay.
Yeah. No, look, we beat them up a little bit tonight, but that's because there's an urgency from sort of the community around this and people who have to make decisions. And we certainly have businesses there that you can see that they showed up, that are suffering, and their constituents are suffering because they cannot get, or their customers are suffering because they cannot physically get parking there.
Correct.
Which ties into some of our earlier parking discussion. Okay, so I think, are we done with item 19?
We are.
Where's my the gavel of justice?
Here.
Sergeant at Arms. Oh, quickly. Mr. Mayor, that was Colonel Mustard in the library with a candlestick.
I just think you get to do this the entire meeting next meeting. When I'm out. I'm out of town.
I'm still protesting. I never even saw the names on that.
All right, thank you for that. we had a hard time following, but we'll get a debrief later.
We ordered entirely off the menu.
Okay.
I mean, it was unbelievable.
Great. I'll look for
Michael
that.
is going to go home and just kick something.
Well, thanks for hanging in there, Mr. Allen. All right, item 20, thank you for covering that. Staff presentation and city council direction on city commercial retail stores, cannabis regulatory initiative ordinance with 2 recommendations, and Mr. George, who will report?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, our city attorney will take the lead on this item, and then we will call Mr. Allen back to the podium for a portion of this also, since he did such a fine job on that last item. And I say that in being sincere.
Well, maybe this will go more smoothly. Actually, I'm going to give the kind of an overview on this. At the last council meeting, the council, well, back up a little further. The council was presented with a initiative petition. The city was rather back in the summer of 2021. That measure was for purposes of allowing retail cannabis sales in the city. It was done by an outside entity, if you will, through a resident, and they went around and gathered signatures from El Segundo residents to qualify for the November ballot, a measure that would allow retail sales of cannabis in the city of El Segundo. The city had previously banned all cannabis sales in the city, had done so right after the state had made it legal, and it had remained illegal in the city and it's still illegal in the city unless the ballot measure passes or the council takes some other action that would make it legal to sell in the city. At the last meeting, the council was given, the clerk presented the council with the information that sufficient signatures have been gathered on the initiative petition, and the council certified that and either had the choice to adopt it as law or to put it on the ballot in November for the voters to decide. You opted to put it on the ballot for the voters to decide, and also then directed staff to go back and look at the potential of the city putting a sort of a competing measure on the ballot with the parameters that it would be a retail business that would be east of PCH. It would have a minimum square footage of 5,000 square feet. It would not be on a major thoroughfare, and there would be no caps on the licenses, the number of licenses issued. And so what Michael and his staff did were to go back and to, if you can pull up a map here and kind of, I don't know if we can make it a little larger to show the east of PCH portion. We give you a general idea if any, and Michael, if you want to go ahead and describe the areas where it, in theory, given the parameters provided by the council, if you want to put a measure on where the areas are that the properties would be available for retail sales.
Sure. So as a refresher course, the buffers, the red and blue buffers represent the sensitive uses, or what are considered sensitive uses: parks, schools, daycares, tot lots that have a built-in 600 and 1,000 foot buffer, depending on the type of sensitive use. And that buffer prevents any establishment from locating within those red or blue areas on the map. So I left on here on this map the buffer and the subject Smoky Hollow area in the C3 zone, just for context of the competing or the initiated the initiative that was privately initiated. But on the right-hand side, the eastern quadrant of the city, east of PCH, you'll see, and the direction was that we look at the industrial zone, and on this map, the industrial zone is represented by this light color blue and this dark color blue for the heavy industrial. But it is this light colored blue area of the city just south and southeast of the Raytheon campus. There's also another section of the city east of PCH along Imperial, and this is the Boeing facility that is also zoned industrial or light industrial. So this map very clearly illustrates that these light blue areas they do have availability. They do have street frontage that is not major thoroughfares. that would be eligible for locating a retailer, brick and mortar retailer establishment.
If council still wants to proceed in this way, we met and talked about, essentially, we would draft up the language for the ballot measure, which would be the ordinance that would be the law that would ultimately be enacted. And we would put in the buffer areas, which actually are larger than what the state minimum requirements are. These are larger buffer areas than the minimum state requirements, which the privately initiated ballot measure had larger buffers also. And so we were going with that approach of providing more area between the sensitive uses and the potential retail sales outlets. The issues as far as security, aesthetics, setbacks, height, all those things would be dealt with in the language we would bring back. And you know, so those are sort of the key elements of what we would put together. And if this is where the council, direction council wants to go, we would bring that back to you in June. And at the next council meeting, Joe Liller, the finance director, will be making a presentation to you about the tax measure options for the cannabis. And we will bring all of this back to you in June, along with the other election materials the council needs to pass to put all the issues on the ballot in November. There are a number of resolutions for housekeeping matters that would need to be passed. And so we're looking for some direction tonight this is the direction the council wants to go at this point.
I have a question. So, so where you're saying the light blue areas are kind of the areas that would be qualify?
That's correct.
So my only concern, especially along aviation there, you know, that's butting up to another city. And I think we should, you know, us putting on something right on the city line would not be fair to the other city. And that aviation is actually a pretty heavy thoroughfare, so I'm not sure if we would want to.
Yeah, we haven't discussed the actual definition of thoroughfare. What our thought was we would select a category that is consistent with our circulation element of the general plan that refers to them as arterials, collector streets, et cetera. And so we can easily identify either well, for sure PCH, and it's very likely that aviation also is a maybe not a primary arterial, but it's probably the second lower classification.
Because you have a school there, you have the middle school. Is that Dana Middle School, and they have those, that's Maptica.
I don't see, the Haven Playhouse is not mapped though. It's there, it's on Coral Circle.
It's legally a church. I don't know if that counts.
Yeah, I don't know. The church is
We
not.
have to look at the definition
okay.
and see. I don't know the location off the top of my head, but I mean, it would be, just because it's not on this map doesn't mean this was a stagnant map. It was created several months ago, and if I wasn't aware of that location, then it wasn't included. But if it qualifies, we'll certainly include it.
And like it was discussed at the last council meeting, when an applicant comes in, it'll be based upon what's on the ground at that time. So if a new sensitive use goes up, then there'll be a new balloon area around it.
Do we have a sense of number of available units that meet that criteria in those two blue zones?
That's a good question. We could certainly come back with that. And then when you say available units, you're not meaning literally available on the market. You just mean properties that are eligible.
Yes, sir.
We can certainly look at that.
Okay.
I guess that's my primary concern, is if we're like, yeah, this is fantastic, and then there's really no properties available, then that would be the campaign against it, right? And the campaign for the other ballot measure.
You mean available for lease or sale right now, or just the number of building inventory?
Yeah, I'm just looking at this map, and you know that the light blue on the top of the map, that's primarily like the high bay and a lot of Boeing Raytheon properties and parking lots, and then along Maple, I believe you have like a Mattel satellite office, but there's not a lot there. On Nash, you have that like 3D printing company, Morphed. Yeah,
I think there's a vacant warehouse property right there on Maple, but
Well, if the council wants like a certain number of minimum parcels, if you will, or buildings that would be in theory available, you can give us that information, then we could also potentially open it up on the light industrial or industrial into one of the other zones that's not near a thoroughfare, and you know, if there's a minimum number the council wants to see established.
I think it's just understanding the inventory that exists, first and foremost.
I think my biggest fear is I don't want us to spin our wheels on this and say, okay, hey, we're going to write it, you know, an initiative to put on the ballot to compete with another initiative, and then when they dig into it, they say, okay, well, no, we're going to campaign hard against your initiative because of these reasons. And then even the people that have come and spoke out against the other initiative are like, well, the other initiative is better than what you guys have drafted because there's no properties available. You know?
I don't see how that would be the case since the argument against that initiative has always been the way it was written, the third-party process and what it could cost the city in the end. That's what I'm saying. I don't even believe that necessarily people are, the ones that came in are necessarily for or against the product itself. I think the discussion was more about how can we control how it gets set up. That was the impression I've got from that. But I understand what you're saying. I mean, if in the end there's like one property that can be used, then that could be a problem. But that being said, that is the direction that we gave as far as thoroughfares go. I know we don't want to touch anything on PCH, and you know, right now I think even if we went over the old one, there's like a small section of Smoky Hollow. If we're taking that off the table as well, that could be a part of the problem. If we added that back in, does that solve the problem? This way, it's a small piece of Smoky Hollow industrial area on the east side, and does that take away the potential for a little to no inventory at all?
I mean, you guys, I'm not in favor of it at the end. I'm in favor of giving the voters the option to say yes or say no. But if they want to say yes, I think what the will of this council was to give them an option to say yes to something that doesn't find us in litigation and is something that is the best, like the lesser of all evils in regards to it, right? And so I guess any comments that I make on this are simply from the standpoint of, hey, let's not shoot ourselves in the foot if the voters' will is to have cannabis legal in El Segundo, then at least let that be their will in a manner in which that makes sense. Not like, okay, hey, we're putting something out there, and now all those people that want it to be legal are like, yeah, but this doesn't even work, and all the companies that were going to be behind us and helping us to, you know, campaign for, you know, ballot measure MH, whatever you want to call it, you know, versus the other ballot measure, now they're not going to help because it's a poorly written measure. That's my fear with the mapping and the limitation on the square footage, so on and so forth.
Yeah, let's see what staff comes back with. When could we have that? I guess would be next council meeting or?
Yeah, well, here we need to maybe we're running out of time because we have to do CEQA too. Is there, so if we were determined, staff determines that there's, help me out, Michael, like how many, I mean, like 3 to 5 parcels there that are available, is that sufficient to where then we could just move forward? I mean, because if there's a number there, and if not, can we throw in?
What were the number of parcels in the other one?
Can you go back to that map, Michael?
Yeah.
You know, the one that proposed Smoky Hollow.
It's the ones in the sort of purple, and then there's the red ones along PCH, so.
Yeah, it's the picture's too distorted to zoom in and get any detail, but I recall it was somewhere between a dozen to 20 parcels.
So let's see if we get close to that number, 10 to 12.
Not all of those, by the way, I don't think would have the ability to have a 5,000 square, or don't have an existing 5,000 square foot building necessarily or use for that. So that's one of the.
So I was going to say that business park that's adjacent to Elevon, just north of Elevon, So it's on this map, but it's not in blue, and it's outside of a circle. What is that? It's Maple, Atwood Way, Douglas, and Nash.
Where we look at this area here.
There's like a Noah's Bagels over there, and a.
Yeah, but you've got the soccer fields there.
Yeah, but the soccer fields are mapped, and it's outside of that distance.
It's the MU North Zone.
Look, map 32. See, it's above it, and it's outside of it. I don't know, but I'm assuming that those buildings must be less than 5,000 square feet. And why that they're not?
Yeah, it's close. I'm trying to remember the square footage on those. They're two-level buildings, and I think each floor is close to 2,000 square feet-ish. So 4,000 on the up and down. Those are the ones right on Atwood Way.
Mm-hmm.
Also, Mark, I don't think we're looking necessarily to sit there and say what is available. I think it's just a matter of what fits with, what exists under the.
Right. Well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, this is dependent. It's a matter of how much someone's going to invest too. There might be land that doesn't have the building on it, but there certainly is land there. What somebody's going to invest to either demolish and build a new building or on spaces out there, that's up to them. That's right. And
But Mark, then you can, at this point, start writing this ordinance. If really all we're talking about is, if in the end, do we reduce it from 5,000 feet down to 3,000 square feet? And it's a matter of, does it stay in here, or do we do that? I mean, can't you get 80% of this thing written up, and then we deal with that?
That's the easy part. Time-wise, we have to do CEQA on this, and I think the only issue that we're really concerned about at all is that these uses generate a little more traffic per trip than other retail uses, and so we need to start. There's not a lot of time to do CEQA. We need to get that done before we come back to you. So that's why we need to get rolling on this. Now, if we come back at the second meeting and, well, maybe we can get the CEQA rolling with.
Yeah, CEQA can start with a fair amount of the information that we already have.
Okay. We're just trying to make it all, we're getting right toward the end of the funnel here. And
So staff can come back next meeting with an idea of the inventory based on 5,000, 3,000, or whatever, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Both of those levels, 3,000 and 5,000.
Were there any other issues, comments that we should? Okay. Any other concerns, comments that we should be looking at?
Have we discussed in there the amount, or did we talk about, is it unlimited amount of business license, or is it, did we limit it?
It's not capped, which.
It's not capped.
Part of the reason for that was discussed was so that we avoid that.
Yes, and it's a small area that we're dealing with anyway, so how many are really gonna go on the same parcel?
I also
Gotcha.
think we should add time frame. So we don't want them being open midnight or.
Oh, right. No, there are
We need to
definite,
put
there are
some-
definite restrictions on hours of operation.
The state law restrictions, or?
Well, yes, and city also. Even the one, I'm trying to remember the hours of the one that was put in front of us, Michael. They were.
I can't recall.
I don't either.
Okay,
But
do
yes.
we want to set a time frame of hours of operation, close at 10,
Well, that level of detail, we can, when we bring it back to you, will that affect the CEQA?
No.
Okay.
In fact, the longer the hours.
I mean, if you're
the less
ready, if you're
impact.
prepared to give us if you 9, 10 o'clock, I don't know what that's generally what I'm seeing these things close at the latest.
Carol said 10. No one's objecting. Okay, anything else?
I mean, you said 10, but honestly, if most of them are open, nothing till 8 o'clock at night.
Till what?
8 o'clock at night.
Oh, well.
Okay, then 8 o'clock.
So, I mean, it's fine, we're making an arbitrary number up, I think it's fine, whatever we feel comfortable with, but I don't think these are all-night dispensary types of thing. That's probably a difficult business model to sustain.
Does that level of detail have to be in the initiative, or can we
Well,
finesse that later?
it's going
Just
to
for
be.
CEQA, does it make sense in CEQA to leave the window as long as possible to mitigate the traffic impact, so you can have a bigger denominator?
Michael doesn't think it's gonna affect the sequence.
I don't think it would by much, but to the point that the longer the hours, the more spread the trips are.
I'm fairly certain it's probably a state mandated closing time. 10 o'clock.
I'm trying to remember,
So you were right the first time, Carol. 10 o'clock it is.
I couldn't remember the state
I knew the last time I.
cap,
no,
but
I didn't.
anyway, so any other, I mean, it's gonna cover security, aesthetics, all of those issues. So it will be, pretty robust. Now, it will leave ability, just like the one that's being proposed, that on all other uses, that's just subject to some future council action if it's ever taken.
All right, we have consensus to receive and file. Do we have a motion directing staff to finalize this city commercial cannabis regulatory initiative ordinance based on the feedback we just provided?
Actually, we can pull that and bring it back, so we're gonna come back with some more information at the
Okay,
next
great.
meeting, and
Very good. Good progress, thank you. All right, committees, commissions, and boards, we have nothing for that this evening. Reports, city clerk?
No, thank you.
City treasurer is not here. Councilmember Drew?
Nothing for me this evening.
Thank you, sir. Councilmember Nickel?
Wanted to report back. At the last meeting, I invited all of you, and none of you showed. No, I'm kidding. I invited the residents to join us on the Zoom for the Hyperion Citizen Council meeting. We had 4 residents on the call, and Elias from staff was on the call as well, and he and I were engaging in conversation off Zoom during the meeting, but it's sad to say that there's still no accountability. There's no honesty. There was more misinformation, more talking in circles, more lies, and it was unfortunate. There was a member of their crew, Ollie, who was always he was like the maintenance coordinator. And so he was the guy that would report on all the maintenance activity, what was going on, and he'd been there for like 25 years, right? He knew where all the mosquito traps were. He knew the culprits of like, oh, hey, this is why. Like, we know why this happened, blah, blah, blah. He's now gone. He retired, which leaves a bit of a void there. They've hired someone new, but without that 25 years of experience, it's just from from our access to the information, it's a gap. I would ask that the residents speak up, sit in on those meetings, keep making the calls. I mean, here's the word. You got to imagine this, right? We have received more emails, phone calls, and Facebook tags than Hyperion has received calls of smell complaint on the smell line in a 3-month period. 7 calls. That's it. AQMD does not give Hyperion the call log or the number of calls when people call AQMD to complain about the smell. And then when, you've seen you guys have seen it on Facebook where they're like, hey, we need one more call for AQMD to, fine them or issue them a citation. Last time AQMD issued a citation of any form to Hyperion was in November. So whatever AQMD is telling us that, hey, if we get 7 calls and we come out and we verify it, then, that's a strike. They're not communicating any of that to Hyperion. None of it. And Hyperion has received 7 phone calls in 3 months on the smell. So I was stern, not overly angry, but definitely angry enough, and I voiced our frustration, and I asked, because Tim was saying a few things, and I don't want to paraphrase his words, and it was not recorded, so you guys can't watch this, but he was saying things along the lines that was completely insulting to any resident that was on the call, and to me as a council member having lived through this saga. And I asked him to please stop lying to us and to please just be honest, and to please not to insult our integrity by treating us like you're just nobody. But it's not getting better. Elias was very frustrated having to sit there and listen to that. And yeah, I think it would be nice maybe at the next meeting, which is in June, if all of us showed up. I mean, it's a pretty informal meeting, but I would love that Zoom and we're talking about coming back in person. The plan is to come back in person that June, meeting at the library, Friends of the Library room downstairs. I would love that room packed, just full, like, just make them wear it, even if they're uncomfortable for an hour, right? It might at least make us feel a little bit better for them just lying to us, blatantly lying to us. They told us, they were talking about the flares, like, oh, it's not a big deal. Oh, it's just a different burner. No big deal. It was just, you know, the air quality, like the monitoring system, they were just like, yeah, no. AQMD didn't ask us to do that, so we're not going to do it. We're not going to do it. It was bad. So I welcome all of you to come join me and the other 4 residents, and let's try to get all of our friends and neighbors there. Chris, I know you're impacted by this. I would love you to ask them to describe the various smells that you've smelt over the course of this year, because I know you have them cataloged. But yeah, so we will get the date. I'll obviously share it at the council meeting just prior to that next quarterly meeting. But I hope all of you guys could attend, because it was embarrassing.
Thank you, Councilmember Nickel. Councilmember Perstock.
Just want to remind everyone that the hometown fair is this weekend. We haven't had it in a couple years, so it's a great, really kind of cute hometowny El Segundo tradition. I'm going to participate in the bake-off competition to judge. Is anyone else judging with me? No? You're going to? Lance and I are going to judge, so bake your cakes and cookies. We're very judgy. Anyway, so I just want to make sure everyone knows about it. All right, thanks, that's all I have.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Pimentel, you have an item under your name?
I do. I have item 21 is the formation of an ad hoc council subcommittee to study establishing a sister city relationship with a city in Eastern Europe. Specifically, I put in here Slovakia and Hungary. The reason I put this on here is not to add any staff time or anything. Just there are Slovakia and Hungary, particularly Slovakia in this case, is bearing the huge brunt of the U.S. effort in support of Ukraine. And I thought it could be a cool thing if we reached out to one of these cities over there, they're very small towns, and just let them know that have some expression of amity. It doesn't have to be a sister city. I use that as sort of a placeholder term, but I didn't want to call up some mayor in Slovakia without the blessing of the council. But I thought it would be just kind of a neat thing to say, hey, we know it's rough on you. You know, this thing looks like it's going to last for a while, and you're going to be in the teeth of it. But there's cities in America that are thinking about you. So that was my concept. So if anyone else wants to do it, I figure there needs 2 of us.
I'll do it.
And in fairness,
what language
this place
do they
isn't
speak?
It's Czech in Slovakia. They
Okay.
speak Magyar in Hungary. The wrinkle though would be that obviously these areas of the world don't have a sterling reputation for moral probity when it comes to sort of ethical things. So if we come across in a little bit of research that, hey, this may not be the city that we want to be affiliated with, I mean, this is a no harm, no foul scenario. This is just a sort of a gesture of goodwill.
I like the idea. The only thing I'll say is Guaymas, we've in the last decade, our efforts with the city of Guaymas, which used to be really strong, have fallen off quite a bit. The sister city, I know you differentiated, this might not be a sister city relationship because those require a lot of effort. When I was in China a few years back, I was asked to sign a sister city relationship with Chongqing or a city close by. I politely declined. I did sign a letter saying that I would consider researching the possibility of forming some kind of relationship with that city, and we have yet to do anything with that. It was kind of one of those weird situations where I didn't know it was coming. You know, it was in front of about 40 people, mostly in the Chinese State Party.
Well, look, I'm very sensitive that obviously Guaymas has been difficult, right? Because of gun battles at the mayoral palace. I mean, that's a so these things. I was certainly. I think one of the things that this ad hoc council subcommittee would be to certainly not drag the city in anything that would affiliate with anything untoward.
So you have who's on the subcommittee? You and
I would volunteer. Kelly, want to join it?
Okay.
Oh,
We should probably vote on it, right? Yeah, okay, so who would like to move that we form a subcommittee to explore some kind of relationship with Slovakia or Hungary?
I'll move.
Okay, we have a second?
Okay, I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, 5-0. All right, thank you. All right, we're on to,
Yeah, hungry, it's a little bit tricky. We can get into that as we, yeah, totally.
Councilman Persick was just volunteering because you weren't on mic, that you have a friend there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that goes there all the time. Okay, great. City Attorney. I did.
Nothing
Oh,
this evening.
because it says council member Boyles.
I'll pass this evening, thank you.
Just kidding. Yeah, but I have nothing to report. City Attorney.
Nothing this evening.
Oh, that was fast. City Manager.
Yes, Mayor, just in follow-up to our budget study session, which we didn't complete, I was wondering if we could maybe do maybe 3 to 5 before the next council meeting, if that works. Joe, you think we'll need about 2 hours?
I mean, I faintly recall him saying it
I
was a
think,
balanced
I
budget.
think we actually will, based upon the comments that we received this earlier afternoon. I think we're gonna need, because there's a number of things we have to come back with.
Well, also, I think if you're gonna come back with it, I know we need to, is why don't we just kind of start highlighting the pain points rather than
Yes.
having to regurgitate all
Right.
the same stuff over again? That might help chop it up a
Yes.
little better.
Yes, no, absolutely, be very focused. I mean, we do have a few things to share that we're unable to, but definitely focus on some of the highlights from earlier today.
And Joe, I wanted to thank you for having your staff participate. Did an amazing job. It was well done. Thank you.
It was the first time that 2 of them ever presented.
They were amazing, so thank them for us.
We could do more than 2 hours if the council wants, or there's also an opportunity
I think
to do a
wanna go
third.
the other way.
A third session. So there's still plenty of time to adopt the budget in late June, so.
I think, you guys want to do it 2 hours before, or what? Yeah.
Okay, so
2 hours.
3 to 5, okay.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Daryl.
Yep.
Anything else?
Nothing else, Mayor.
Okay. We are going to go back to closed session. So, you know what, Daryl, can,
Yeah. Sure.